Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Great to be here in the evenings, and thank you so much for your loyalty and for so many people ringing in over the last 3 nights. I'm here tonight. I'm actually going to be here next week as well for the whole week, so I'm looking forward to that too. So much to discuss tonight, including the Gibraltar betrayal. We'll speak to Mark Francois, the Shadow Defence Minister. We spoke to him last night, but since then there have been further developments, not about the Chagos Islands, but about Gibraltar. We'll get into all of that in just a second. Another surrender by the sound of things. Also, police have apologised to the Lord Speaker over the Mandelson tip-off blunder. We'll speak to Philip Kistley about all those issues, especially Speaker Lindsay Hoyle and what he was doing in the Virgin Islands on another jolly. 4%, just 4% of small boat migrants have been sent back, but the number in the taxpayer-funded hotels has fallen to an 18-month low, so we will talk all about that. We'll also talk about a horrendous boycott and indeed attacks on Gales, the bakery chain, in particularly one branch in London. We'll speak to someone who knows about the organisation of a protest tomorrow, Breakfast at Gales it's called, and I will be supporting that by eating a Gales bun live on air. I'm willing to make that sacrifice. But the anti-Semitism that is more seriously in our society, absolutely ludicrous and horrendous. Ian Huntley has been attacked in prison as well. We'll be talking about that. So much to discuss here on Talk between now and 10 o'clock. Stay with us and be sure to get your call in. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note, less than a minute please. We'll play out as many of those as we can. You can also send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. We will talk about that, all of those issues coming up to 10 o'clock here on Talk. Well, I have a little bit of an announcement to make, and that is, you may have heard Kevin O'Sullivan talking a few minutes ago that he is going to be the now permanent host of the Drive Time programme, and many congratulations to him for that. It's been confirmed that I'm going to be the new presenter of this programme, the evening programme between 7 and 10, 5 nights a week here on Talk. So there's a lot to look forward to. I'm delighted to be in a 5-night-a-week slot. My final weekend programmes are going to be Saturday and Sunday. So I'm off tomorrow. Duncan Barks is doing this slot tomorrow night. And then I'm going to be doing my Saturday and Sunday shows as usual between 10 and 1 both days, although I think Saturday's slightly shorter, 12:30. So I'll do those. Those will be my final weekend shows, and then I'm going to be doing Monday to Friday next week. So welcome to the new schedule will be from very, very soon, but I'm going to be doing the evening shows between 7 and 10. So thank you to everybody for welcoming me to the slot. And as always, this is my show, but it's your show too. So whatever you think we should be covering, whatever your views are, however you want to contribute, you let me know at all times. 0344 499 1000. And if you have any story suggestions, things you think we should be covering throughout the day, something pops into your head, drop me a message on Twitter, as many people do. Right then, let's talk about Gibraltar and what is happening there. Mark Francois joined us last night, but actually we were in touch earlier today, and there are so many different aspects to this deal with Gibraltar which erode UK sovereignty, and we'll talk to him in just a second on that. But some of the detail on this is horrendous. Spanish border guards stationed inside Gibraltar. Spanish authorities going to perform the full Schengen border control functions at the border crossing points set up at the airport and port. Spain can refuse entry to travellers on sovereign British soil, granted the right to refuse entry to third country nationals, including non-EU citizens such as Britons from the UK mainland who do not meet Schengen entry conditions. That's a a zone that Europeans can go into. Spain conducting border surveillance within Gibraltar. Spain can get arrest, detention, search and seizure powers inside Gibraltar. Spain gets primacy and coercive action, can block new residence permits, can force withdrawal of existing resident permits, can retroactively review pre-treaty permits, can ban individual Gibraltarian residents from leaving Gibraltar. If Spain considers a person resident in Gibraltar to be a sufficiently serious threat, Spain can issue a prohibition preventing that individual from travelling to any Schengen country. Gibraltar must enforce the ban, including through peace cooperation with Spain. Appeals go to a Spanish court. So there's an awful lot in this. Mark Francois joining us in just a second on this. Quarterly risk assessments must be provided. Short stay visas for Gibraltar visitors, where a third country national's main purpose is to stay in Gibraltar. The short stay visa is issued by Spain, not Gibraltar. Emergency border visas can be blocked. Spain can object to Gibraltar gaining asylum when someone applies for international protection in Gibraltar. Spain may, within 14 days, extendable to 28, object. I mean, there are just loads and loads of ways in which sovereignty, British sovereignty in Gibraltar, which is our sovereign territory, is being eroded. What do you think about this? 0344 499 1000. The EU can safeguard over customs compliance, tax rates, assessing Gibraltar's tax rates. A joint UK-Spain body can assess whether Gibraltar's taxation, tax and excise duty rates cause competitive distortions relative to Spanish rates, and Gibraltar must adjust its rates based on this body's recommendation. There's so much erosion of sovereignty there. It seems like joint authority almost. Very, very interesting. I mean, there are many, many more aspects to this as well. Enhanced police checks in Gibraltar. Spanish and Gibraltar authorities performing enhanced police checks within Gibraltar and the Spanish contiguous zone to prevent crime and irregular migration, which may take the form of joint operations. So there is so much in all of this. We're hoping to speak to Mark Francois in just a second on this, but the territory ending its VAT-free tax regime and in effect becoming part of the EU's Schengen travel zone, Spain able to veto the entry of British travellers to Gibraltar and refuse residency permits on security grounds under a post-Brexit treaty. Giving Spain power over energy and residency checks has been seen by British Conservatives as an erosion of sovereignty. There are many people who are very, very angry about this. And of course, we've Mark Francois, who we'll speak to in a second, says it's strategically balmy to share sovereignty of the airport with Spain. The government, though, Stephen Doughty, a Foreign Office Minister, says the treaty ensures Gibraltar's economy, people and future are protected as an integral part of the British family. He said nothing would be finally agreed without Gibraltar's consent, adding the UK's commitment to Gibraltar will never falter. Well, what do you think of that? Do you think that's true? Do you think that's something which we can actually have confidence in when the government says it? 0344 499 1000. The leader of the opposition in Gibraltar has welcomed the publication of the treaty, says it is a seminal moment for the territory, but says the benefits would have to be weighed against the risks that arise from what is conceded before his party takes a formal stance on it. And Fabian Picardo, who is the Chief Minister of Gibraltar, said this is a safe and secure agreement we've negotiated alongside the UK, and that unequivocally protects our position on sovereignty, safeguards our economy and delivers the certainty our people and businesses need. Lots more to discuss on this. We're struggling to get Mark Francois on the line, but as soon as we have him, we will talk to him. We'll take a break now, but we'll come back in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk.
brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you so much to everybody who's welcomed me to the slot. I'm going to be here permanently 5 nights a week from 7 till 10. It starts next week. The new schedule starts next week. Kevin is going to be on Drive as well. And my final 2 weekend shows are this Saturday and Sunday. I'm off tomorrow, but in on Saturday and Sunday. So I'll be saying a fond farewell to those slots. They've been absolutely wonderful, and I've had an amazing audience over the last 4.5 years at the weekends. And I hope that I can continue that and build upon it in these evening slots between 7 and 10. Mark Francois is with us now, the Shadow Defence Minister. Mark, this outrage over Gibraltar, just tell us your thoughts on it.
Yes, but first off, congratulations with your new slot.
Thank
and
you.
All the best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Look, yes. Well, like many Brits, I'm very, very annoyed about this. Let's put it into context right from the word go. This is not just about Gibraltar. This is about Labour's wider EU reset. You've heard me say time and again, Keir Starmer remains a Remainer. He is a passionate Europhile at heart. And doing this with the Spanish is in the wider context of Labour's attempt to take us back into the European Union by stealth, step by step by step, salami slicing our freedoms, our sovereignty. And when you look at it in that context, it's easier to see what they are up to. The agreement itself, including the annexes, as I'm told, is about 1,000 pages long. And I hope your viewers will forgive me, Peter, but I haven't had time to read it all yet.
I forgive you anyway, Mark. But we know some of the. Give us some of the headlines anyway.
Yeah, I'm good, but I'm not that good. So what this does is it gives the Spanish joint sovereignty over Gibraltar in a number of areas. So over border controls. So even Brits who want to go into Gibraltar will have to show their passports to Spanish or EU frontier officials. They would be allowed to pursue, quotes, suspects into Gibraltar, into British sovereign territory, and those security personnel could be armed. We need to go into the fine print about these new arrangements for a joint company that will control the airport. As the Shadow Armed Forces Minister, I'm particularly anxious about that. That airport is actually Royal Air Force Gibraltar. It's an RAF base that is allowed to accept commercial traffic. We cannot allow any veto of any kind over the use of that strategic runway in the Mediterranean. We've had all the nonsense over Chagos. We can't have that in Gibraltar as well. The Gibraltarians are fiercely pro-British. They voted in a referendum some years ago by over 98% to retain their links to Britain. We cannot allow this Europhile Labour government to sell Gibraltar's sovereignty down the river as a sop to the EU to try and get the EU to help them to rejoin just because Starmer's obsessed with it.
So, Mark, when you hear Stephen Doughty, the Foreign Office Minister, say the treaty ensures Gibraltar's economy, people and future are protected as an integral part of the British family, he said nothing would be finally agreed without Gibraltar's consent, and added the UK's commitment to Gibraltar will never falter. What do you make of those words?
Well, it reminds me of all the crap that he said about Chagos. I mean, what Labour do is they come to the House of Commons with a very, very complex document. They tell us all there's absolutely nothing to worry about. And then when you start to pick apart the fine detail, you find that they have been, I'll choose my words carefully, if I was at school, I'd say they were fibbers. right?
Yeah.
So on Chagos, as we've gone into the detail, as we've looked at the relevant treaties, we found that actually there is no legal threat to the Chagos Islands. We're going to pay £35 billion to Mauritius to rent back some islands that we owed in the first place. It's madness. And when we have a chance to unpick the fine print of this treaty, I suspect we will find that what Parliament is being told is, how shall I put it, not 100% accurate. So Stephen Dowse is a nice man, but I've learnt from bitter experience not to believe a single word he says at the dispatch box.
Wow, that is damning. And when you think about what powers Spain will have over Gibraltar by people coming in, going out, these powers as well about refusing entry to travellers, border surveillance, detention, search and seizure powers that are proposed here. I mean, would you go as far as to say this is some form of joint sovereignty of Gibraltar? Because that's what it looks like to me, Mark.
Well, certainly in some of those areas, that is what it looks like. But, Peter, if I may, I've been dealing with European treaties for years, going right back to the Lisbon Treaty in 2007-8. That was 300 pages, this including the annexes, and a lot of the devil's in the detail. It's often buried in the annexes. So what you have to do, from bitter experience, is go through all of this with a fine-tooth comb, right? But even at first reading, you and your researchers have identified a number of major areas where our sovereignty, or that of Gibraltar, is at risk. I suspect, as we have the opportunity and the time to go through the whole thing and read the small print, as it says, we'll find that there are more. But even from what we know, within 24 hours, there are important encroachments on sovereignty and all the areas about border security that you have just enunciated. So when they say there are no threats to the sovereignty of Gibraltar, well, we've been told all this stuff by Labour about EU treaties before. It was all crap then, and it's probably all rubbish now.
What would you say to the charge that because of Brexit this has happened, and were it not for Brexit, Gibraltar would be safe?
Well, there's nothing to do with it. In 2016, the people voted peacefully and democratically by a majority of 1.4 million votes in the United Kingdom to leave the European Union. There are people, particularly in the Labour Party, who have never, ever come to terms with that. You know, they just cannot accept that the British people have the temerity to vote to govern themselves. They want to take us back in. They don't have the guts to admit that. So what are they doing? They're trying to do it by grandmother's footsteps, one stage at a time. That's why we have what's being called dynamic alignment in areas like food security. What that means is once we sign up to an area of dynamic alignment, Peter, if the EU change their rules, we dynamically follow them. We automatically follow them regardless of what Parliament wants, right? That is totally against the spirit of the referendum. So what you've watched them do is find more and more areas where we want to dynamically align. In other words, to rejoin by stealth. They will salami slice our sovereignty because they're never going to put it to a referendum again because they saw what happened last time. Starmer is an absolute Europhile. He and the team around him are behind this, and they're also prepared to play games with the sovereignty of Gibraltar as part of that mission, just as they played games with the sovereignty of Diego Garcia, just as given half a chance they would play games with the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands. And we sit in Parliament and junior ministers come out to just dead back questions again and again and again, and when you catch them out, they tell you that they are wrong. I caught Louise Sanders-Jones out in Parliament a month ago. She said that Keir Starmer had never been instructed by a man called Phil Shiner, who was jailed and struck off for bringing...
I mean, that wasn't true, was it?
No, it wasn't. Well, my point is, it wasn't true.
Yeah.
I raised the point of order. She told me I was wrong, and I'm not good on detail on defence. Well, that's for others to judge. And I insisted I was right, and she came to the House of Commons, I think yesterday, and had to give an apology and correct the record and say that, in fact, I was correct. Labour ministers do this stuff all the time. They read out what's in their briefing folder. Whether it's true or not is completely immaterial. That is how Labour treats the House of Commons with total and utter contempt.
Mark, thank you. That is the Shadow Defence Minister, Mark Francois. He spoke to us last night, but there's been further detail, not on Chagos, but on Gibraltar, as we've been hearing. What do you think about it? This betrayal of the people of Gibraltar, who are, of course, British. 0344 499 1000. Let's go to Spain. And Jane, who's an expat who lives out there. You're very welcome to the programme, Jane. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter.
Hi there.
Right. I last went to Gibraltar about a year ago. In the car park, there were no Spanish cars, only Gib. Now the problem is going to set in as follows. There are about 15,000 people working in a place called La Linea, which is Spain, employed by Gibraltar. They will lose their jobs.
I mean, that's a lot of people, Jane.
Pardon?
It's a lot of people.
Indeed.
A lot of people.
Then you have what I would call the affluent Gibraltarian having villas in a place called Sotogrande, which is in Spain. As far as I can tell from what you're reporting, they are not going to be able to visit their homes and will have to sell them.
There's a lot in this, Jane, and we'll...
There's so much in it. It's unbelievable.
Does it feel like a betrayal to you?
Oh, absolutely. I think it is stupid on the Spanish side and the Gibraltarian side.
Okay. Jane, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Joanna in Salisbury says, hi, Cardi P. I never thought I'd see the day when our government would act like traitors to our country. Chagos Islands first, now Gibraltar. Is it the Falklands next? Says Joanna. Well, let's hope not. Zarina says it's the beginning of the end for Gibraltar. Let's find out what Philip Kisley thinks. He is our guest now and will join us for the next little while. Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Philip, great to have you on the programme. How are you doing?
Hi, Peter. It's great to see you. Yeah, I'm doing fine, thanks.
Great stuff. Tell us your initial thoughts about this Gibraltar deal, because we've heard so much about it in the last few minutes. Border guards to be stationed inside Gibraltar. Spain can refuse entry to travellers. Spain gets arrest, detention, search and seizure powers inside Gibraltar, and primacy and coercive action, arrest, detention and seizure, and can block new residence permits as well. Well, they're going to use all those powers, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, of course they are. I mean, it's absolutely shocking. I was just listening to your caller then, and it's heartbreaking what's happening. You know, it's in a way. I mean, it's obviously it's not on the same level. But I was just thinking while she was talking about that. I was thinking about the Berlin Wall, and I was thinking about the kind of division and heartache that this kind of thing will sow. It's just utterly appalling. But it doesn't come as a surprise at all, and I think that's the worst thing of the worst aspect of the whole thing. You know.
Yes, certainly. Can force withdrawal of existing residence permits, can retroactively review pre-treaty permits. I mean, it's a very complicated thing, but when you look at it in the round, Philip, when you look at what's happening with the Chagos Islands as well, when you look at what's happening with Gibraltar...
Well, this is what I mean, yeah.
You know, Joanna there has very reasonably said, well, hold on a second, we have to think about the Falklands Islands. You know, I'm thinking about Northern Ireland as well in all of this, and we just have a government that doesn't seem to want any British territory.
Well, I suppose it's rooted in so many things, and you have to think that it's rooted in a theoretical point of view as well, and this is kind of anti-imperialism and post-colonialism. Student politics is playing its way in this, and you just have to you just think to yourself, my God, these people are not only in charge of us; they're also in charge of these people in tiny little vulnerable places, and you are supposed to take care of these people. You are supposed to put them first. And I remember what happened vividly, because I remember watching it on television. I remember reading the papers at the time when the Falklands War happened. There was no equivocation. We just went out and defended the Falklands. This government has the absolute opposite mindset, which is just to let everything go, let these, as I say, very, very vulnerable people, just give them to what are essentially hostile powers. And I know we're talking about Spain here, but even so, it's still, it's still going to be very, very difficult for these people on a personal level. And that's what I'm thinking about here. These people, these individuals, and that's what our government really doesn't seem to be thinking about.
It certainly doesn't, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens over the next little while. Let's talk about Peter Mandelson for a second, because the police have apologised to the Lord Speaker, Michael Forsyth, about this screw-up, the fact that they put in the public domain, well, more accurately, to Mandelson's lawyers, exactly who the source was for what happened in the British Virgin Islands. Interesting as well that Andrew Neil, the long-serving doyen of journalism, someone who's a broadcaster, been editor of the Sunday Times, been a BBC broadcaster as well, someone who doesn't mince his words, talking about some of the detail of Lindsay Hoyle, why he was on a jolly to the British Virgin Islands. You've been reading about this, Philip. Talk us through it.
Yeah, well, let's just dwell on this mistake for a moment, actually, okay? Because they've mixed up Lord Speaker with Common Speaker.
Yes.
Doesn't bode well for the rest of the investigation, does it? You know what I mean? This is incompetent.
Pretty basic error there for these senior police officers. Yeah,
it's a pretty basic error, and you have to think, my God, what are these people doing if they don't have the basic vocabulary of the mechanisms that run this country, and they can get it mixed up? Then once they get into the Epstein files, and once they deal in detail with Mandelson, not to mention Andrew, my God, what's going to happen? But yeah, the Lindsay Hoyle thing is really interesting, because you can go chapter and verse through his expenses, his holidays, his hotels, his meals, his staff going out there and all of that kind of stuff. But there's one instance that really stands out to me, Peter, and I've written it down because it's extraordinary. From 2019, he has spent £6.9 million, taxpayers' money, refurbishing and maintaining his Speaker's house. 6.9 million. So for me, that sums it all up, okay? This, talk about trotters and snouts in troughs and all of that kind of thing. That's just one instance. Then you lay on top of that all of the other stuff, and you really get that these people are treating us like idiots. We are funding lifestyles here. And okay, yes, Mandelson has been, awful and wicked and stupid and megalomaniacal and all of those kinds of things, but greed also plays right across all of these people, and it's the Labour Party, it's socialist with an expense account. It's appalling, and we should not be paying for it. We should be asking for this money back.
And in addition to this, Mandelson facing an EU fraud investigation over the Epstein files. Tell us about this, Philip.
The EU fraud. No, you tell me, because if you take it first, I'll take it from you.
Oh, okay. Well, I will get all the detail here in front of me. Maybe I haven't got it in front of me, actually. No, I don't. I ambushed you with that, and I don't have the detail in front of me either. But apparently there is an EU fraud investigation into the Epstein files. So I tell you what we'll do. We'll accept defeat. We'll take a short break, and we'll come back and talk about immigration. But I just want to thank, I don't want to do this too much throughout the show, but I just want to thank all the people who've been very kind to me and sent messages about the fact that I'll be taking over this slot 7 till 10, 5 nights a week from next week. I'm on tonight, as I say, not on tomorrow, doing the weekend shows, and then on 5 nights a week from next week. That's my new slot. And Alison in County Antrim says, great to hear you'll be on the evening now. Happy days, congratulations and kind wishes. Thank you, Alison. Betty says, primetime show, going to miss our pre-coffee rants on the weekend mornings. Break a leg. Thank you, Betty. Well, there are 2 more weekend shows. I'll be there on Saturday and Sunday. And Alan says, what are you up to tomorrow? Well, I'll be sleeping and doing a bit of paperwork, I must say. But Catherine in Cardiff as well. One more. Never missed the slot when Kev was in it. Nor shall I now. You're at the helm. Congratulations. A well-deserved appointment. Thank you, Catherine in Cardiff. Thank you to everybody who's messaged me as well. A few friends sending texts and things. But yeah, it's official. I'll be here 5 nights a week from 7 till 10. More with Philip Kistley, including on immigration, next here on Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, here we are, and Zarina says it's the beginning of the end for Gibraltar. A lot of people not happy about that at all. We want to talk about immigration now more generally, because just 4% of small boat migrants have been sent back, although the number in taxpayer-funded hotels has fallen to an 18-month low. Part of that, of course, is closing those hotels. But where do those people go, and have they been processed? 75% of them, let's remember, become legal because they are the government judges them anyway to be genuine asylum seekers. Other headlines about 545 migrants arriving on the busiest day of the Channel crossings for this year. That was on Wednesday. 74 people on Tuesday and 500 on Wednesday. So the crossings so far this year, 2,149. Also, £8,000 has been sent to France for each Channel migrant they've stopped in the deal paid for by you. This is the £175 million payment to France last year to tackle Channel crossings. £8,000 for every migrant stopped. And this would be illegal migrants who have been stopped, but of course there's so few of them. 22,476, while 41,472 actually made it to UK waters. Well, Philip Kisley, who's the Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, is still with me. Philip, what's your reaction to all these statistics?
Well, you look at them and they're kind of mind-boggling, aren't you? You see that 4%. They're only stopping 4% of people, but we're doing better in other areas, and it reminds me of the ongoing war in 1984. Where we're making ground one week, and then, oh God, we're pulling back the next week, and nothing ever really changes, and we're playing within a system that's completely broken, and nobody can really do anything about it. I think one of the really interesting figures here is that there is a 64,000 backlog of asylum decisions to be made. 64,000 backlog. Now that's come down. It was much higher than it is now. But even so, it doesn't really make any difference. What it does is illustrate completely how this system is broken. And if there are fewer people in hotels, so what? It's like you said before, where the hell are they going? What's happening to them? Well, we kind of know what's happening to them because we see it in the news every day, don't we? They're put in military encampments, they're put in inappropriate places, and many of these people, because they are undocumented males from cultures who view women not only as second-class citizens but as barter material, end up breaking the law and often committing sexual offences. So I think there's such a lot going on here, and ultimately we are dealing with a system that is completely broken. It's like, I don't know, it's like saying, the plane's crashed into the mountain, but look, this wing is almost intact, or yes, the engine's gone, and it's that kind of thing. It's almost pointless in a way, and I despair when sometimes it's worse seeing, we're doing slightly better, because it's completely meaningless, and it's just a little bit of red meat, so the government will be under slightly less pressure and will fight another day. And of course the main problem is that this government is just governing by the day or governing by the hour, with a kind of caretaker manager that's going to be gone by May. So we're in such a terrible mess. And you said before, what was it, 500 yesterday, 450, 500
545 on Wednesday, yesterday. And in fact, it's a lot of people. And I wonder what our viewers and listeners think about this as well. If you just give me a ring on 0344 499 1000, we can have a chat about it. Philip, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's February, for God's sake.
Yeah.
What's it going to be like in May, June, July and August? So, what was it last year? 41,000 across in small boats?
That's right, around that, yeah.
So, we're looking, I would imagine we'll be looking at a similar kind of thing, year in, year out, year in, year out. Again, because we're working in a system that is completely broken. Again, because the mechanisms to try and, combat this stuff are just useless. And we are being frustrated by the blob, the the ECHR, and all of those things. So it just feels as though, good news is bad news and bad news is good news. It makes no difference.
Home Office spokesman said the numbers show real progress as ministers are to try to restore order and control at the border. Thousands to be moved out of emergency hotel rooms and into longer-term accommodation. The Border Security Minister Alex Norris said these figures show removals and deportations of illegal migrants are now at record levels. Nearly 60,000 people with no right to be here have been removed under this government, including the deportation of 8,700 foreign criminals. I mean, that is not true. 60,000 people have not been removed. What has happened is some of them have been forcibly removed, a few thousand. 8,700 foreign criminals have been deported. Great. Most foreign criminals, certainly at the end of their sentence, should be deported to some degree, although there's a whole argument about that. Maybe we'll get into that in a second. But most of those 60,000 people, and I know, Philip, will have been sent an email by Border Force saying, we noticed you've overstayed your visa by 3 months, Australian, student or person on gap year. You've overstayed your visa by 3 months. Please leave, otherwise we will be forced to you've got 3 weeks to leave, otherwise we will be forced to take further action. That's what's happened, and the vast majority of the 60,000 people have left of their own accord. This is not Border Force action, this is sending an email. That's what it is.
No, this is dealing with mass immigration, isn't it? And the complexities of mass immigration, as you just rightly said there, particularly students who postgraduate students who've outstayed their welcome. That isn't dealing with what we are worried about. And I'm just looking at what's happening on the screen now. That is not dealing with undocumented males. The vast majority of the people they're talking about are dealing, they're going to go anyway, and that's fine. This is just spin, isn't it? This is just damage limitation. This is just saying, look, we're doing something, and if you don't look too closely, then everything will be okay for us. And really, that's what it's all about. I mean, I've just been kind of following very, very closely. It's a bit of a diversion here, but I've been following very closely the Gorton and Denton by-election.
No, Philip, I've got to stop you there, unfortunately, because we're not allowed to talk about it. What we're allowed to say is there is a by-election in Gorton and Denton. Yeah. It is happening today. There are polls that are open at the moment until 10 o'clock. And
so we're not allowed to talk about it.
And the weather has been okay. And that's all we're allowed to say until 10 o'clock. Plenty tomorrow, and I'll very, very happily discuss it with you on a future occasion. But let's keep us all on the right side of electoral law. It's interesting, actually, what the government's been saying as well. Alex Norris, the Border Security Minister, saying including people of nationalities, we are returning people of nationalities to countries that we have rarely been able to return before, with a significant rise in returns to Afghanistan, Eritrea and Sudanese nationals. Now we will go further. We will continue to impose visa sanctions on countries that do not accept their citizens back, and we will introduce domestic law to ensure human rights laws cannot block a legitimate removal. I mean, what on earth is the government actually, this Labour government actually going to do to introduce a domestic law to ensure human rights cannot block a legitimate removal? That's just not going to happen. How on earth are they going to say, well, European Court of Human Rights, we're just going to introduce a domestic law that says we're going to ignore you?
No, and again, it's as I said before, isn't it? We're working within a broader framework imposed upon us that simply does not work for us. It works against us. And I'd like to know what significant numbers are. I mean, they're talking about Afghanistan, Eritrea, and possibly places like Somalia as well. These are the countries with immigrants who come here with the highest proportion of criminals and people who commit crimes and sexual abuse crimes here. So I'd like to know what the detail is there. The problem is we don't get the detail, and when we do get the detail and we look at the stats, it's the problem that I pointed out before, which is, there are gains here, but there are losses here, and ultimately it doesn't mean anything. It is just about survival for the government. And there, I mean, I don't know how long this can last, Peter. I don't know how long we can have, on this channel and every other platform that are having similar discussions. I don't know how long we can have these discussions before the whole system implodes and falls apart, really, because it feels day by day, week by week, month by month, things are changing so rapidly in this country, and people are so fed up, so frightened, and so angry and fearful. And that's a toxic frightening, terrible combination. I really don't know how long this can continue, and I worry for the future, not just the future of our children and so on and so forth. I actually worry for the short and medium term future as well.
Yeah, Philip, there we are. We're going to take a quick break and come back to you, but thank you to Kevin in Sheffield, who says, regarding Gibraltar, does Starmer have a mandate to do this? Was it in the Labour Party manifesto? If we have sovereignty, and is it a British overseas territory, surely we decide what happens there. It sounds like the EU negotiators have completely run rings around us like they did with Brexit, and yet again, what is in this deal for Gibraltarians or the British? I'm guessing absolutely nothing, says Kevin. Lindsay Hoyle says Margaret should be brought to account for jumping on the gravy train. That amount that he has spent, absolutely jaw-dropping. Another person says, I like Mark Francois, but he sold us down the river here in Northern Ireland a few years ago. We are being ruled by a foreign EU. Another person says the Gibraltar issue has reared its head because Starmer is trying to join the EU. Whilst the UK has sovereignty over it, Spain will always veto any attempt of a UK application. That single veto is enough to block our entry. Dawn in Chelmsford says, I feel that we're in troubling times. None of our overseas territories is safe under Labour. Hopefully the Channel Islands are safe, but who knows? Nicola as well has sent me a lovely message, as have Margaret and a few other people as well. So I'll not read out them all, but Nicola says she's going to really miss me at the weekends. Brilliant to hear you've got the weekday evening slot. Many congratulations. Well, Nicola, that's lovely, and thank you to everybody who has sent those messages in. We'll do a bit more with Philip, and we'll talk to callers as well. If you want to get your voice on the air, Gibraltar, Mandelson, immigration, whatever you want to talk about this Thursday evening, I want to hear from you. Use the break, pick up the phone, let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thanks to everybody who has been in touch, including Brad in Cambridge, and I really appreciate all the messages that have come in. We've also, Philip Kisley is still with me. We'll take some calls in a second. And Philip, I've been handed the information. Lord Mandelson could lose £31,000 a year EU pension because of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. He faces losing his pension as a result of a fresh inquiry. The European Commission asking its anti-fraud office to look into whether the disgraced peer tipped off the paedophile about a multi-billion euro bailout to save the currency in 2010. He was, of course, a EU Commissioner for Trade between 2004 and 2008. He could, in theory, be stripped of his £31,000 a year pension he's entitled to after serving for 4 years. spokesman said its officials had asked the European Anti-Fraud Office to look into the confidential documents released as part of the Epstein files early this month. They said, given the circumstances, a significant amount of documents to be made available publicly, the European Commission also asked on the February the 18th to look into this matter further. Pending the ongoing assessment, we are not in a position to comment further. But yet more problems for Peter Mandelson, who of course denies any wrongdoing.
Yeah, but I don't think losing 31 grand a year is going to make that much difference to him, really. I think he's got a bigger fish to fry at the moment, don't you? So, yes. I think, everything that happens to him from here on in, assuming, he's guilty, if he is guilty, then he deserves everything he gets, because it's not just Mandelson that's on trial here, is it? It's New Labour, it's Blairism, it's the last 30 years of our political history, it's the catastrophe that we're in now, it's open borders, they wanted to rub our nose in diversity, didn't they? Well, they've certainly done that, They wanted to sort of get everybody into universities. Well, that's completely cheapened the currency of our education, So everything that many of the woes we have at the moment stem from 1997, 1998. And so Mandelson's trial really is symbolic for me. And if he loses 31 grand a year, then great.
Well, of course, he hasn't been charged with anything yet. We'll see if a trial actually happens. But I think you were talking more in the general sense there, Philip. You're sitting down, Philip, aren't you? You're not standing. Just to be clear, yeah. You're sitting down. Yeah. I just do you have a glass of water near you or anything? You're okay.
Have a cup of Vimto.
Have you a cup of Vimto? Vimto. Excellent. Glad to hear you're in a safe and calm environment, because I'm going to tell you some shocking news. Okay, you ready?
I'm right. Yep.
Deborah Turness, who used to be the head of BBC News, said most BBC journalists wouldn't vote Reform UK.
I can't believe it. Can I just swap this for vodka?
You can. I, for one, am shocked that this revelation has happened. She resigned in November over the Donald Trump speech in Panorama and that doctored clip. She said that at a media conference, listen to this, do I think that the BBC newsrooms would, in percentage terms, vote the same way as the nation right now in the UK in terms of the Reform Party, which is quite an extreme conservative movement, very anti-immigration, and is really gathering steam? No, I don't, she says. She also said it was a problem with the edit. I mean, that's a little bit like saying Mrs. Lincoln had a not particularly brilliant evening at the theatre.
Well, it's amazing, Peter, because I've heard as well that the BBC wasn't behind Brexit either. It's amazing, isn't it?
I'm shocked too.
The revelations, one after another. It's amazing, and who'd have thought?
Philip, let me tell you something. I worked for the BBC around 2011. And there was the leadership election for the Labour Party was happening at that time. Ed Miliband, Ed Bowles, David Miliband, and Diane Abbott and Andy Burnham, right? And I was sitting in the BBC Westminster office, which includes many great impartial journalists, some of whom are friends of mine, some of whom are very, very good journalists. But there was one particular journalist who was going round people in the office saying, who are you voting for? And asked me, not knowing my politics, as I hid them very, very well, said, who are you voting for? I said, don't you have to be a member of the Labour Party to vote for Labour leader? And he said, oh, loads of people here are members of the Labour Party.
Ah, well, there you go. I remember after Brexit working in a university, I won't say which one, but actual tears, real kind of as though it was the end of the world. People sat at their desks, stunned, staring into the middle distance. It was fabulous. It was one of the best days of my career, actually. So, yeah, it's strange how all of our institutions, our national broadcaster is just so captured and literally working against the majority of people. But that's been the way as long as I've been working. As long as I've been working in higher education, which is 25 years, I've appeared on the BBC many, many times from, I don't know, about 2007 always the same. It's always the same, exactly the same kind of people, exactly the same kind of management structure, and exactly the same kind of message. Not only that, exactly the same kind of attitude to ordinary people. Now, that quickened post-Brexit and became much more hostile, but it was there beforehand. And, you know, you don't expect anything different from these places. I'm talking about broadcasters and institutions.
Just before you go, Philip, I wonder if I could ask you about the BBC apologising for not editing out a very serious racial slur, a word I wouldn't say, and certainly we wouldn't broadcast on this network, from its BAFTA Film Awards coverage after a guest with Tourette syndrome shouted out when two black actors were on stage. This is John Davidson, whose life story inspired the film I Swear. BBC spokesman has now said that we apologise, this was not edited out prior to broadcast and it will be removed from the version of the BBC iPlayer. The Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch, said the BBC had made a horrible mistake by not editing out at the time. I think an apology is important. They need to explain why it wasn't bleeped out. What do you make of this, Philip?
Well, this was a story about someone with a disability, and someone with a disability blurted out something that he didn't mean. It was just a manifestation of his disability. Yes, they should have edited it out, but I think the fuss around the word, I mean, it's an absolutely inexcusable and terrible word, but the man does have a disability. You know, I think there are bigger fish to fry, again, with the BBC, pro-Gaza, pro-Palestine, all of that stuff around the BAFTAs as well. So, you know, they didn't edit it out, but then again, they didn't stop Bob Vylan singing Death, Death to the IDF, did they? So what do you expect from these people?
Yeah, indeed. Well, listen, thank you, Philip, for all your words of wisdom this evening. That's Philip Kisley there, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. I want to speak to Herbie, who's in Harrow, about the migration situation. He's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. You can do that too. Herbie, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Well, good evening, Peter. What I'd like to say is, how many more can we take on? The country will be overrun in no time. If the weather stays nice for the rest of the year, God help us all, you know, we'll be overrun by them. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It is. I mean, 545 people are an awful lot of people.
In one day.
And one day, you're absolutely right. And when the government then says, well, actually, we've got a handle on this, we're deporting people, 60,000 have gone, illegal people have gone in the last while. Of course, it's not all of the illegal people are coming over the channel. There are many other illegal ways that people get into this country. Do you think this government has a grip on this at all, Herbie?
Oh, Peter, this government's got a grip on nothing. What are the problems now with, Gibraltar? It's only the tip of the iceberg. This government is ruining this country once and for all. They are determined to destroy our way of life. Wake up, people. If you can't see what's happening, then you're all asleep. It's just gone beyond belief. It's madness. Peter, we can't carry on. Where are we going to put all these people? We can't house people now. It's just ridiculous. It's gone believe. We can't, make people healthy because of the hospitals are packed up. Peter, it's just gone beyond a joke now. It really has. It's gone mad, absolutely mad, bonkers.
Herbie, thanks for your thoughts there. Let's go to Roy in Hampshire, who's also given me a ring, 0344 499 1000. What do you think about the migration situation? What do you think about 545 people coming across in small boats? We're also talking about the BBC and the shocking news that Deborah Turness, who's the former head of BBC News, said that she doesn't think that the same number, 24% of people at the BBC, would vote for Reform UK. I, for one, am not massively shocked by that. We're also talking tonight about the Gibraltar situation as well. I'd love to hear people's views on that. I know Roy in Hampshire has some views on immigration. Roy, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Well, I think we can solve the boat crossing once and for all. If the French allow us to return everybody that lands in this country back to France, say for a month, it would solve the problems for France and for us. Because then the people will not be invading France to get over here, and that would solve the problem.
It's a very, very good point, Roy. I'm just not sure that actually it's going to happen, because there's so many...
But that would solve the problem.
Well, the French just aren't going to take them back, though, are they? They're in a great position. They're very happy with all of this. They get hundreds of millions of pounds of our money, yet they don't seem to have to do anything. There doesn't seem to be any kind of payment by results for what they actually do for us.
Yeah, but what about all the migrants that are dossing down in France that they've got to police and look after?
Well, it would appear to me, I don't know what you think, Roy, but it would appear to me that the French are only too happy for those people to leave. They do seem to be facilitating them getting to the shores of Calais and then coming across to the UK.
Yeah, but they reckon parts of France have been taken over by these people.
Yeah.
You know, they're keeping in the main streets in areas. You know, it must be dreadful for them as it is for us.
I think that's a very, very good point. Roy, listen, thanks for your call. That's Roy in Hampshire there. Really appreciate that. If you want to get your voice on the air between now and 10 o'clock and give me your opinion, please do. Please give me a shout, 0344 499 1000. Or you can send me a text as Phil in Portsmouth has with some very, very nice words about my move to the evening. So thanks for that. And Becca says, surely the King needs to step in if the Labour, as Becca puts it, government are going to give away British territory. What on earth is going on in this country? Well, might you ask, because I think there are some very, very fundamental questions about immigration, about how our society is run, and we're going to try to answer some of those questions and get some answers to those questions, Becca. So thank you for your thoughts on that. Jamie says, given the scandal surrounding this Labour government, every decision they make needs to be carefully scrutinised, as nothing is ever as it seems. I expect that Labour cronies will be retiring to mansions in Mauritius, says James, I should say, in Leeds. So thanks for that. And Claire says, great, you're going to be staying in the evening slot. Who's going to be doing the weekend shows? Well, that is to be determined. That is for people who are further up the food chain than me, it must be said, but I'm sure all will be revealed before too long. Lots to discuss in the next hour as well. We're going to be talking about Ian Huntley, who has been seriously injured, the Soham murderer of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. He has been in HMP Frankland, which some of the nastiest and most horrible people in this country are incarcerated there. They're meant to be incarcerated safely. These attacks, of course, shouldn't happen, but I'm just going to be totally honest. My sympathy for Ian Huntley is very, very limited, even though he is in a hugely serious condition, and there are worries that he might not make it. His head has essentially been split open by someone wielding a steel bar and violently attacking him on that. We'll talk about prisons in general. We'll talk about the smirking Afghan migrant smuggler who's been filming himself laughing and relaxing with snacks and TV in a cushy UK jail. He has been putting that on social media. It's now been shut down. And the number of offenders in jail is actually going to fall under Labour's soft justice reform of jury trial. That's actually been confirmed by the Ministry of Justice. Well, one of their former governors is a guy called Mark Hammersley. He's going to be joining us in a second. He used to run His Majesty's Prison Brixton, and there's so much to talk about in regard to that, and I want to get your views on all of it too. 0344 499 1000. And thanks to Helen, who says, nice to see you now have your own spot. I wasn't too far off when I talked about Gibraltar, was I? Says Helen. No, you weren't, Helen, and I'm very happy to take that on the chin. Loads more to discuss in the next hour here on Talk. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, it's just gone 8 o'clock. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell, newly in this slot. New schedule launching on Monday, but I'm going to be on the evenings and between 7 and 10, so thanks for your warm welcome. So much to discuss tonight, including assisted dying. It looks as if that bill is going to go and not become law because the government has decided they just don't have the numbers. Very, very interesting on that, although it is meant to be a private member's bill, but it's absolutely clear the government wanted it to happen. We'll talk about Ian Huntley as well. The Soham murderer has been seriously injured in a prison attack. I would imagine there are probably not too many people who have a huge amount of sympathy for him. Our broken borders as well. Labour moving thousands of asylum seekers from hotels to private homes, and just 4% of small boat migrants have been sent back. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about why I have a Gales bun in the studio. I'm going to eat it later on air, and I'm going to show my solidarity for Gales, which has been it's a pretty expensive bakery chain. I don't eat there all the time, I must say, but they have been targeted by anti-Semites. So I'm going to make sure that I support them. There's a protest tomorrow we're going to be hearing about in support of Gales, because there are just Jewish businesses that are being targeted by anti-Semites. They say they care about Palestine. They don't. They do care about that, but what they really care about is being horrible to Jewish people, and I just think that is absolutely disgusting. We're going to talk about all of these issues. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note less than a minute, please, if you would. 0344 499 1000. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10 tonight, and indeed every weeknight with me here on Talk. And thank you to all the messages that are coming in to congratulate me on getting the evening slot. The latest one from Heather in Bangor. Appreciate that. And someone who says, do you think the Labour Party is planning to give migrants a vote as it approaches? Well, I think that would be an incredibly difficult thing to do. I think there would be an absolute outcry, because you would, of course, change so many different constituencies. There are a lot of worries that this may happen. And, of course, if people have citizenship, they have the right to vote. So we will see what happens with that. But I don't think it's likely. I think that would be a step too far, even for this Labour government. But what do you think? Maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you think I'm naive. 0344 499 1000. It's absolutely fine to disagree with me, because on my programmes we disagree without being disagreeable. And however you want to say, Peter, you're talking nonsense, or alternatively, Peter, you're talking sense, and here's why. You give me a ring. 0344 499 1000. We'll get as many callers as we can on the programme between now and 10, because yes, it's about great guests, including Mark Hammersley, who we're going to talk to in just a second, but it's mainly about you at home, or whether you're driving in your car or van, or however you're spending your Thursday evening, however you want to communicate, whether it's a text message, whether it's a voice note, whether it's a phone call, get in touch. Now then, let's talk about the Soham murderer, Ian Huntley, who's been seriously injured in a prison attack. Mark Hammersley is a retired prison governor. He used to work at His Majesty's Prison Brixton, amongst many others. Mark, we hear that Ian Huntley has been attacked with a steel bar and is in a very serious condition. How do these attacks happen in prisons? They're meant to be incredibly secure, and prisoners, even scumbags like Ian Huntley, are meant to be protected.
Evening, Peter.
Evening.
Yes. Well, in a prison generally, I say where Ian Huntley is, he's mixed. He's on a wing with a group of prisoners, and there'll be prisoners who are of a similar ilk, prisoners of similar types of crime, prisoners who many prisoners have enemies, whether they be gang members or whether they be individual feuds, or whether because they're quite notorious crimes. And often at the start of a sentence, a prisoner may decide to self-isolate and keep himself just on his own in his cell, and he'll be 100% secure. But as time goes on, as they get a bit more confident and they get a bit bored, and they speak to their solicitor and they start demanding things, and then they want to be associated, they want to work, they want to mix, they want to be treated equal, and gradually they integrate and many prisoners integrate together, that they might ask for protection from the main prisoners. Quite well-known sex offenders will not be accepted by the main prisoners, but together they accept each other and get on in a way. And so where Ian's located, he'll be on a wing and in a workshop with a group of prisoners who have been assessed and have generally been risk assessed to get on okay with each other. And they've all probably got something, some sort of enemy, something to hide, but they all tolerate each other and make the best of things, really. Obviously, in this instance, something bad's gone wrong, and you know, human behaviour is as it is, and it can be unpredictable at times. I don't know if it was a particular feud or if it was something someone may have paid someone to do something. But things sadly do happen. There is violence in prisoners, and some prisoners have a target on their back. And this is, I expect, this is something that's happened in this instance.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. HMP Frankland, which houses many people who are extremists, for example, many people who are Islamic extremists, many very evil people, including Ian Huntley, and he's been pretty quietly serving a sentence for some time. There's been odd stories, of course, that have come up, and he is a very well-known prisoner, and anything about him is obviously of interest to the media because of the horrendous and unspeakable crimes that he perpetrated against Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman and their families and communities. I just wonder what happens when something like this happens, because we heard an air ambulance was on the way, that he was brought by road, in fact, to a hospital. So a very high-profile prisoner in a hospital now. He's not, I'm sure, in a position to escape at the moment, but of course there'll be a big security operation around that. Just tell us how it works logistically when this kind of thing happens.
Yeah, well, someone as notorious as Mr. Huntley will have a secure escort, obviously, that will take him to hospital, and he'll be guarded well when he's there. The police will be informed, and they'll be also having a presence to make sure that in the hospital he is secure, because he'll have a lot of enemies on the outside that wouldn't normally get an opportunity to get anywhere near him in a prison, but obviously in a hospital it's totally different. So he will be guarded by both the police and the prison service will be having a secure guard while he's actually in the hospital. And in the prison, there'll be it's a crime scene where what's happened has happened in the workshop, I understand. There'll be a crime scene, the police will be informed, they'll be in to look at evidence, they'll be in to interview people, they'll be in to look at CCTV, and to see what they can get together for that. But a prison is a very unusual environment in the sense that witnesses are not like Joe Public. Many prisoner witnesses, as I'm sure you know, is quite sort of well known, don't like to grass, don't like to say what happened, don't like to help the police, don't like to help the authorities, and often crimes in prison are covered up, or evidence is made very weak by the population that's in there. I mean, a workshop would be, you would imagine there'd be a number of prisoners around. A number of prisoners probably would have seen what happened, but the number of prisoners that will actually give evidence against this sort of thing would probably be very few that actually saw it, or they'd give wrong evidence. They'd actually tell something that didn't happen. So in terms of proving a crime afterwards, and it can be quite tough in prison to sort of go through that, but we try to go through.
And who leads that inquiry? Would that be a police inquiry or a prison inquiry?
Well, it's in the prison, so anything happens in the prison, it's the prison to start with. They would do the investigation, but something as a serious assault like this would be, where the punishment would be quite strong, would be handed over to the police quite soon for them to take over. And they'd come into, in the same way as this crime on the outside. But well, another hard thing in a prison, of course, is when something like this happens, is not only have you got the complication in a prison of prisoners who might not be the most cooperative, but you, in terms of the CPS and what someone might be in prison for, quite often in a prison, when you get an offence, the CPS, if it's with the police, would say, it's not in the public interest to pursue. And
why is that? Why is it not in the public interest? Because you have people serving really long sentences, and even if they get a sentence, it's going to just be added on concurrently to the term they have already. Is that perhaps part of it?
Yeah, exactly that. The courts, as you know, are very backed up. There's a huge amount of delay in getting normal cases there anyway. And if the perpetrator who committed an offence or allegedly committed an offence is likely to get a sentence that is unlikely to change his release date,
well, that's interesting.
At the same time.
But that must have a double effect, Mark, because if you say, well, I'm here for 25 years anyway, what does it matter if I get done for something else, or indeed don't get done for it, because the sentence isn't there? And I suppose this actually leads very nicely into the next part of what I want to talk to you about, which is Labour's soft justice surrender. This is stripping thousands of defendants a year from the historic right to a jury trial. Cases going to be heard by a judge sitting alone in a bid to reduce the Crown Court backlog, currently at 80,000 and set to hit 100,000. What do you make of these reforms from your perspective, Mark?
Well, I mean, I always try and think of it, but most people think of it from Joe Public's point of view, but I always try and think of it from the prisoner point of view, the person who's committing the crimes. And this sort of thing and all the release schemes of letting prisoners out early, all that's doing, in my view, is encouraging prisoners. It's saying we can commit crimes and we'll get less of a sentence. We're more likely to get away with it. And if you, I mean, it's a terrible idea, and it's all about the fact that we haven't got enough space for people in prison. They just want to get people out early because there's not enough space for them. Whereas the answer should be, if money wasn't an object, we need more prisoner spaces. We don't want to discourage people from committing a crime. We want to discourage people from committing a crime, not the opposite. Yeah. And I think that this is likely to influence someone of that ilk, someone who commits crimes. It's not going to deter them. If anything, it's going to do the opposite.
And David Lammy, who's the Justice Secretary, says the criminal courts we inherited were on the brink of collapse, with victims waiting years for justice while the backlog spiralled out of control. Our courts reform will deliver record investment, serious reform and practical modernisation to get cases heard faster, protect jury trials for the most serious crimes and set us on a path to turn the corner on the rising backlog by the end of this Parliament. We will see whether that actually happens or not. Just before you go, Mark, I wonder if I could ask you about this Afghan alleged migrant smuggler filming himself laughing and relaxing with snacks and a TV in a Cushy jail. This has gone on TikTok. Now, the prison authorities and the Ministry of Justice have acted on this, but the fact that this can happen and the fact that this can be put on social media with impunity won't exactly give confidence to too many people, Mark.
No, not at all. It's a reflection of the society we're in now that if Joe Public didn't know, prisoners do have colour TVs in their cells. They do have telephones in their cells. They can go to the shop and spend their money and buy sweets and bits and pieces for them. There's a lot of things that have come on over the years, entitlements and things they've won and all been introduced by various governments, and it's a very different place to Ronnie Barker and Porridge and how it used to be many years ago. And when it gets to the stage where a prisoner like this is boasting of stuff, it
just shows a total lack of regard for authority and also presumably a lack of worrying about the consequences, because this is public. It's going to be on. We can see on the screen now all the different treats and nice things that he had, the flat screen TV in his cell and all the rest of it. The kind of place to live that so many people would quite like, a load of snacks stacked up there. But many people, of course, on the outside can't afford them, aren't getting 3 meals a day and accommodation paid for them.
No, absolutely. And if a prisoner's boasting about it like this and laughing at it, thinking it's such a soft touch, then maybe the government does need to really think about that and say, well, you know what? If prisoners are laughing at it and making out that prisoners easy and showing off about it like that, you want to deter people from committing crime. I think you want to make a jail. You don't want handcuffing people to a big metal ball and they can't move in the middle of the floor or something. But equally, it doesn't need to be the writs, and you've got to get a level playing field in the middle. And when you get prisoners, if they've got a mobile phone in prison and they can choose to do whatever they want with it, for them to choose to show off, look what I've got in my cell in the prison, that's telling you that prisoners themselves think they've got too much. Prisoners themselves think it's too cushy. So let's all have a look at that, I think, and think again, is prison too cushy?
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think a lot of people will agree with you. Mark, thank you. Again, Mark Hammersley, retired prison governor, used to work at His Majesty's Prison Brixton and many other prisons as well. Nick says, surely there's CCTV all over a prison, especially a high-risk prison. Yes, there would be, Nick, of course, but we know there was a legal case recently about someone in solitary confinement who said that CCTV was intrusive, and there was a European Court of Human Rights ruling on that, if I remember correctly. John says, it's interesting the society too scared to impose the death penalty, as they know someone with courage is prepared to carry out the deed. Well, I'm not pro-death penalty. As you know, John, I don't think it deters people. I think they do what they want, and prison should be a deterrent, but often isn't, I'm afraid. On Chagos, Jason in Worthing has been in touch and says, were the Tories responsible for the start of the sale of the Chagos Isles? As I understand, they were forced into it because of legal challenges by the UN. It would be good to have some clarification. Jason, what you need to do is watch two different interviews that I've done in the last couple of weeks. One is with Mark Francois on Chagos. It was, I think, 2 Mondays ago, so about 10 or 15 days ago. If you look on YouTube and you put, you know, talkTV, Peter Cardwell, Mark Francois, and look it up, you'll find it. He talked a lot about what the current status is, and it was a very good interview. And this thing about this provision within the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. And a second interview with a guy called Ben Judah. Judah is spelled J-U-D-A-H, and I interviewed him a couple of nights ago. All of your questions will be answered because there's a lot from both sides, actually, in both those interviews. So I would highly recommend that you have a look at those on YouTube. You can just look them up. Samantha says, what's your thought on the assisted dying bill? For a change, the House of Lords has got it right. Samantha, I agree with you. I think it was a flawed piece of legislation. I don't think it would work. I am really, really worried about people being told that they can have assisted deaths. I have experience in my life, as many people do, of seeing people with cancer in the advanced stages of that. In fact, the last few days of their life on one particular occasion. It is horrible. It is not pleasant. It is not something I would wish on my worst enemy. But the bill that was in the assisted dying bill that was before Parliament wouldn't work, would be quite worrying, actually, I think, if it was implemented, and actually wouldn't help a lot of people anyway. So that's my view on that. We are going to talk about that a little bit later on as well. Whatever your thoughts on these topics, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call to get your voice on the air. And many thanks to Marge, who says, I just walked into the kitchen and heard you talking. Are you guesting for the week? I am guesting this week, but from next Monday, I'm actually going to be taking over the slot. So I will be here 5 nights a week from 7 till 10. This is a lovely surprise, says Marge. I hope you're here all week. Well, thank you very much. I'm here not tomorrow night. Duncan Barks is doing that programme, but I'll be here at the weekend for my final Saturday and Sunday shows this Saturday between 10 and 12:30, and on Sunday between 10 and 1. And as always, we have top political guests on those and plenty to talk about, and plenty of calls, text, tweets and voice notes, which I want now and on this programme as well. And maybe you would even consider migrating from the weekend to this programme as well. It's always good to hear from people. We're going to hear from more people next who have given us a ring on 0344 499 1000. We're also going to talk about our broken borders. Stay with us.
brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Apologies, as some people have noticed, I have a little bit of a sniffle, but thankfully Matt, who's our assistant producer, has very kindly brought me a box of tissues. He also, earlier on, got me this Gales bun, which was very kind of him. I sent him out on a little errand to get the Gales bun as I was reading into the stories this evening, and that's because there is some horrible anti-Semitism that is happening in regard to Gales. It is Jewish-owned and has absolutely no connection to Benjamin Netanyahu or anything that has happened in the Middle East. Yes, yet there are horrible attacks on various branches of Gales, including in Archway in North London. We'll be talking to a couple of campaigners who are staging a protest tomorrow in support of Gales. I will be in support of them, sadly not tomorrow morning, but certainly I will be having that bun later on in the programme. I want to talk now about our broken borders. Labour moving thousands of asylum seekers from hotels into private homes, and just 4% of small boat migrants being sent back, although the number in hotels has fallen. That's because they're being sent out into the community where so few people actually want them to be, especially with these huge backlogs. This comes as 545 migrants have arrived on the busiest day for channel crossings this year. William Yarwood is a spokesman for the Taxpayers Alliance and is with me now. William, what do you make of all of this?
Well, good evening, Peter. Thanks for having me on the show. And I think one thing I think that is actually slightly concerning, although we have talked about the cost of migrant hotels many times before, and as we know, thanks to the National Audit Office, that bill is going to be over £10 billion for British taxpayers by the end of this decade. I'm not exactly pro moving them into private accommodation either, mainly because what you're doing is you're taking privately rented properties off of the market in a situation where we will have a massive housing crisis. And also it's going to be across towns and across cities in a dispersed way, meaning that these migrants are going to be put in residential areas, next to schools, next to hospitals and the like, unlike hotels where they may be costly, but at least they concentrate illegal migrants in one area. Putting them across the country in a dispersed way with less security, I think is just going to cause havoc on local communities and put even more strain on people's ordinary day-to-day lives.
I think you're absolutely right, and the processing to me seems to be the issue. The fact that it takes so long. They've got so many people coming over, 545 in one day, which would be basically 2 medium-sized hotels full the whole time. Where do these people actually go is the question I would ask. And also, if you're taking over private accommodation and homes of multiple occupancy, and lots of councils want this to happen because they know that these places can be built in their area and at least they have the accommodation in theory at the end of it. Well, actually, we're just moving the problem. We're just spreading the problem around, aren't we?
Yeah, indeed, and that's the key issue here. I think this is just kicking the can down the road, to be quite honest with you. I know Labour was, celebrating a lot of their deportation figures today, but you look at the overall statistics, like 94% or 95% of illegal migrants that have moved to this country or illegally came to this country over the last few years haven't gone anywhere. They're still in hotels, they're in privately rented accommodation and the like. And also one of the criticisms that has been made is actually one of the ways they've been trying to get illegal migrants back to their own countries is by by, of course, giving them money. Now, of course, there's a difference between voluntary and involuntary deportations. Involuntary deportations, according to the Migration Observatory Committee, can cost around 15 grand a pop, but voluntary deportations are a bit cheaper, with about 2,000, 3,000. But the thing that annoys me in the voluntary deportations part, which I think is better for taxpayers because it's cheaper, within those voluntary deportation packages, that's not just a plane home, Peter. That's things like money being used to go home and set up a business, or going home with I just spending money in your back pocket.
There's a load of people who've paid into the tax system here who would love £3,000 to set up a business, or even £1,000 to set up a business from, although the government doesn't seem to want people to set up businesses because they've made it so flipping difficult to do so, given the national insurance contributions and all the rest of it. But why do we have to incentivise these people who shouldn't be here in the first place? I just think it should be a lot tougher, and they should say, you're getting on a plane right now, otherwise there will be serious consequences. Because if you're here, if you're somewhere illegally, you know, Australia, America, wherever, will deal with it in a much less kid gloves kind of way, William.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that goes to the heart of the issue, as I think this government, and to some extent the last government, had a level of softness around this because they didn't want to offend certain people. But who would they be offending by this? You look at polling regarding what the average Brit thinks of illegal migration, and they want the government to be much, much harsher on this, and also find more cost-effective ways of doing this. I mean, from 2021, the Sun did a good bit of reporting on this. British taxpayers have paid over £74 million to illegal migrants to leave the country, and actually within this is things like I said, going home to start up a new business, going home to help out their family because they might have family back at home. And quite frankly, Peter, if you've moved to another country illegally on a small boat, the last thing I think British taxpayers should be doing is encouraging these people to go home and set up a business or help their family, because what they should be doing essentially is, like you said, being forced onto these planes, being forced to go back home, because quite frankly they don't have a single right to British taxpayers' cash into it, and had no right to take from a system which they themselves have never contributed to and have simply just taken out of.
I think that all makes perfect sense. And I just wonder, from a Taxpayers Alliance perspective, counting the beans as you do, about the numbers here, the amount of money we're giving France as well. £8,000 for each channel migrant they've stopped in this unsuccessful deal, paid for by, of course, the British taxpayer. £175,000 payment to France last year to stop the channel crossings, working out at £8,000 for every migrant stopped.
Yeah, it's £175 million, actually, Peter. It's even worse than 170,000.
Did I say 175,000? Yeah, apologies. It's a heck of a lot more than that. Apologies.
I was going to say 170,000 sounds like a good deal.
I could just about live with that, but 175 million is the actual total. Apologies for that.
Indeed, yeah, 175 million. Let me put that into some context for you, Peter. So the average household over their lifetime pays almost £1.3 million in taxes. £175 million that British taxpayers have given to France is the equivalent of about 137 households' entire lifetime taxes gone in one fell swoop. And also, as you can see, this money is just completely wasted because France isn't particularly interested in blocking any of these attempts, really. I mean, I think over 41,000 still made it through.
That's right.
Meaning that it's quite clear that the deal that has been set up has not worked at all.
Exactly. I mean, if 2/3 of people make it through, well, what's kind of the point of the deal? And there's clearly not a payment by results system here. I mean, if someone paid me £8,000 to stop someone coming across in a small boat, I mean, I'd probably do it for £800, to be honest. I mean, it's just, or even 80. I know people who do it for £80 or even £8, because there's such a strong view on this. We're just not getting value for money, taxpayers' money, with that money going to France and going to the French exchequer and the French taxpayer there. We know as well that France is probably all too happy to see these people leave.
Yeah, indeed. In a way, you can't blame them. I mean, why would they want these people in their country? But I don't see why Britain has to suffer the consequences. Look, Peter, I think this whole argument comes down to whether the government is going to be serious or not. I don't actually care about Labour's jumping up and down about these numbers today, to be quite frank with you, because they're frankly just quite not good enough. You know, Brits have been desperately annoyed for the last few years about illegal migration and the rising costs and the rising crime and so on and so forth. But also there's just a fundamental unfairness aspect to it all. Why is it right that British taxpayers wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, go to work, pay their taxes and do the right thing, all the while down the road there's an illegal migrant hotel full of people with spending cards, they've got 4-star accommodation, free food, the likes, and also many of them indeed, Peter, go off and work illegally for other companies. And so there's an unfairness problem here, which I don't think the government is at all addressing. And I actually think that this whole stunt, essentially, today from the government regarding these figures is little more than window dressing and little more than smoke and mirrors.
The former Borders chief, a guy called John Vine, said, "I'm afraid we would have to say it is unsuccessful because that was the second highest total of any year since these crossings began in 2018. It's interesting, the government does seem to say that this is working. Of course they would say that. And actually, if I can find it here, the Border Security Minister, Alex Norris, said these figures show removals and deportations of illegal migrants are now at record levels. Nearly 60,000 people with no right to be here have been removed under this government, including the deportation of 8,700 foreign criminals. This includes returning people of nationalities to countries that we have rarely been able to return before, with a significant rise in returns to Afghanistan, Eritrea and Sudanese nationals. We will go further. We will continue to impose visa sanctions on countries that do not accept their citizens back. And we will introduce domestic law to ensure human rights laws cannot block a legitimate removal." I mean, how successful do you think the Labour government will be if it really wants to introduce a domestic law to ensure human rights laws cannot block a legitimate removal in the context, William, of the European Convention on Human Rights? I'm not a lawyer, I don't think you are either, but I think we can see, as a blind man and a galloping horse can as well, that the ECHR is going to be used time and time and time again, and domestic law cannot override that in the current situation if we are still part of that convention.
Yeah, indeed, and that's the core problem here. You know, the last Conservative government had this issue as well and also refused to leave the ECHR, although, of course, they were supposedly in favour of us detangling from the European Union, but forgot about the European Court of Human Rights, which is, you know, one of the worst parts. But also...
Well, it's a separate body to the EU.
It is separate, but it's connected in some way. But nevertheless, the interesting thing is that while I think Mahmood has some of the correct mood music, I think she's essentially gone into the Home Office and got what I like to call Home Office derangement syndrome. I think I saw her in her eyes a few months ago when she first became Home Secretary, and she seemed quite determined and quite strong in her language. And maybe I believe that, maybe I don't entirely know. But one thing I do know, Peter, is if they try and change these human rights laws, how on earth are they going to get it past their backbenchers? I mean, backbench Labour MPs weren't willing to, you know, deal with welfare. They rebelled over the 2-child benefit cap stuff, which of course the government then had to U-turn on, although at this point I can't really keep up with the amount of government U-turns. So if Mahmood poses this,
there's been a mere 15 U-turns so far that I've counted. But William, all of that makes perfect sense, and thank you for it. That's William Yarwood there. He's a spokesman for the Taxpayers Alliance. What do you think of what he said there? What do you think of the immigration situation in this country? 0344 499 1000 to talk about our broken borders. Ernie has been in touch and says, "Peter, I always thought that you could only buy treats in prison with money you actually earned in prison, and that something like a bottle of pop or a bowl of fruit would cost an absolute fortune. What is this people smuggler using to trade with the other inmates? This needs to be seriously looked into." Well, I agree with you, Ernie, and the fact that he's posting it on social media with impunity is absolutely dreadful as well. I'm going to talk in just a second to another guest, to Alistair Thompson, about this assisted dying bill that is now not going to go through, and this is the law to allow terminally ill adults the right to choose to end their own lives, which has been approved in Jersey, but looks as if it's not, and the Isle of Man actually, but it's not going to be approved here in the UK. That seems to have gone away because the government doesn't think they can get it through. It's a private member's bill, but we all know the government has been behind it since day one. We'll take your calls, text, tweets and voice notes to 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Stay with us.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, let's talk about what's happening in Parliament at the moment, because it looks as if this assisted dying bill, which we've been talking about for months and months and months, is now not going to go through. It was originally a private member's bill, but we know that many people in the government, not all of them, but many people in the government were behind it, and it was essentially a proxy for government legislation. Alistair Thompson is a spokesman for Care Not Killing. Alistair, you must be delighted.
Yes, I am. And it also highlights the difficulty in legislating on this issue. What we saw in the Commons was a very weak bill that was passed for the House of Lords. And indeed, a number of Labour MPs actually said they were only supporting it on the understanding that the House of Lords would sort it out. It's a complete dog's breakfast. And the supporters of changing the law are to blame for this.
Why? Why are they to blame for this?
Because arrogantly they've weakened the safeguards. So, for example, initially when the bill was published, it was going to be High Court led. Oh, that was such a load of nonsense, wasn't it? I mean, they told us, they said, Kim Ledbetter, who was the MP behind this, went on and on and on and on. There was a little mashup of about 12 or 15 times she had said a High Court judge is going to make a decision here, and then they got rid of that. That was ludicrous. Yes, and they have watered down safeguards at every step of the way, which is why you've seen a number of the big doctors' groups, Royal College of GPs, physicians and psychiatrists, have all in recent months said, while we're neutral on this issue, we don't support this bill. This is unsafe. It will put the lives of vulnerable people at risk.
Yes, and I mean, I agree with that. What would you now say to people who were perhaps diagnosed with long-term conditions? I know Esther Ranson has been, actually, can we just talk about Esther Ranson for a second here? Because she was diagnosed, what was it, three and a half years ago with a terminal illness, and she said that she wanted to elect for assisted dying. Had she done, I mean, she's got 3.5 extra years of life. She's well enough to do interviews on this. I want her to live as long as she can, of course. But the fact is, even with the most high-profile campaigner on this, the former TV presenter Esther Ranson, had she elected for assisted dying, she would not have had those extra 3 years of life with her family and friends. I just find that, I don't mean to be callous or cold in all of this, but if she were to have elected for assisted dying, she would no longer be with us.
And we all know cases of people who have been given a 6-month prognosis and have lived many years. My family dentist got a 6-month prognosis, lived for 11 years, thanks to treatments, new treatments coming out, all sorts of changes in lifestyle. So, and actually we know from the medical literature that between 30 and 70% of 6-month prognosis are incorrect. So this also highlights another problem with the bill. So I hope Esther Ranson goes on for many more years, because it highlights why having a 6-month rule is frankly for the birds.
I just want to ask our viewers and listeners what they think of this. Are you glad this is gone, that this won't become the legislation that the government clearly wanted it to be? 0344 499 1000. And Alistair, I just wonder what you would say to those people. I mean, I've been through this myself, a one-step removed, but there will be many people watching and listening who will have seen people die, who will have known people with cancer, with other horrible life-limiting conditions, people who've been given terminal diagnoses and gone through huge amounts of pain. What would you say to them about your position? I know assisted dying now isn't going to happen in this country, at least for the meantime, but what would you say to those people who might have thought actually assisted dying is something that they could get on board with?
So I want people to get mad at hell at the real scandal in this country, and that is the fact that palliative care is overwhelmingly, in terms of our hospices, funded by members of the public. It's not funded by the state. It's actually funded by volunteers rattling tins, people running marathons and doing incredible jobs. So I would say, get angry, write to your member of parliament, write to members of the House of Lords and say you want palliative care properly funded, because where it is properly funded, actually we don't need assisted dying, whether it's suicide or...
But also lots of people will disagree with that, and they will say that, I mean, in the instance that I saw, I'm not going to go into any detail because it involves people's sort of private lives and so on, but it was a woman who was pretty close to me, who I knew the family very, very well, very close to the family. I saw her in the last moments of her life, and that was well-funded, excellent palliative care that she received. Yes, a lot of it was from a charity, Marie Curie Nurses, and your point stands, and I know that Marie Curie, Macmillan, many other organisations do great work in our charities, and maybe the government should fund that. But there will have been people in the room that I was in thinking, actually, in the last moments, assisted dying of some degree a day or two before would have stopped a lot of suffering. So maybe you could just answer the question and tell me what you would say to those people.
So I would say we need to review care at the very end of life with, really in detail, because the Association of Palliative Medicine, so the group that looks after doctors and nurses who really deal with this at the end of life, overwhelmingly say, if you deliver high quality palliative care, people should not be dying in pain. And where they are dying in pain, then that tends to be a problem with the care package that they're on. And actually, some of the cases like Harold Shipman and others have made ordinary GPs much more nervous about matriculating up the levels of pain relief that sometimes people with conditions like cancer actually need at the end of life. So we need a whole-scale review of palliative care in the UK.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That is Alistair Thompson there, spokesman for Care Not Killing. What do you think about all of this? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call, because this is a very, very emotive issue. It's something that people think about a lot, and a lot of people really don't want to think about either. I totally understand that. The really heartbreaking decisions and emotions that people have at those moments. Lenny's in Ashford and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000 about this. Lenny, what are your thoughts on assisted dying?
Well, I think I'm going to give you a true life experience, and it's why I believe the only person should have to make the decision is the person who it concerns.
What if they don't have the capacity to make that decision?
Well, if they have, then they should be entitled to make the decision they want.
But what if they don't? What if they're in a situation where they're clearly in a lot of pain, but they cannot reasonably consent to assisted dying, Lenny? Well,
I mean, if they, then obviously there has to be an option that it can be done.
Okay.
Because, there has to be an option there. But let me explain something to you. My uncle, who I was named after, was rushed to hospital, and he was in a wheelchair. He had all the drips put in him, and he had all his family round him. And he looked at him, and he looked at his family, and he looked at the doctors, and he said, "Now, what I'm going to do, I do not want you to replace, and I do not want you to take any action."
So he was in a situation. I'm just summarising here, Lenny, because we don't have a load of time. Yeah. But just to be clear, he was saying to his family and to you, this is how I want to go. This is my decision, and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, and he pulled all the drips out of his arms. He said, "You're not to put them back." He said, "Because the one thing I do not want is my family to watch me suffer."
Right.
And that was his choice.
And do you think that was the right choice, Lenny?
Yes, I do. Yeah, because he does not. Because it's not only the people that are suffering that have to go through the torture; it's their loved ones who's watching them do it.
I mean, it's a really, really emotive issue, Lenny, and he was in a situation where he could make that decision. But there's so many families, of course, who will see someone suffering and want to make a decision for them and not legally be allowed to do that. In fact, they could be sent to prison for doing that. It's a very, very difficult issue, isn't it?
Well, it is, but what it is, there must be if you can have a dog put down because it's cruel to keep it alive,
yeah,
then why can't you have the same decision for a human being?
I think a lot of people will agree with that, Lenny, and certainly they don't want their friends, relatives, or indeed pets to suffer. Lots to discuss in all of this. 0344 499 1000. We'll continue to discuss it. We'll also talk about Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, saying the BBC has made too many mistakes, and the shocking news that most BBC journalists apparently would not vote for reform. Stay with us here on Talk.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Joanna in Salisbury. Says, I haven't realised we actually opened, there was Gail's Bakery opened locally last year, as I rarely go into town in Salisbury. I'm going to make a point of going to the bakery to check it out online. It looks very good. And thank you to Joanna about that. Yes, we are going to be talking about Gail's Bakery in just a minute or two. I have, as you can hear and perhaps see, a delicious treat from Gail's Bakery. I'm going to be eating that on air and showing my solidarity with the business, which happens to be owned by Jewish people. And of course, they're being targeted because obviously they're perpetrating a genocide in Gaza. First of all, there is no genocide in Gaza. Second of all, Gail's Bakery have nothing to do with what the Israelis have done. But still, anti-Semitic attacks and allegations that they're part of this have happened. We'll be talking about that in just a few minutes' time. And Joanna also says, how is 9 days going without the fizzy stuff? Thank you. This is day 9 of Lent, and I am off Diet Coke. It is a struggle. In fact, is it day 8 today? I don't know. It's all blurring into one anyway, Joanna. And yes, Easter Sunday is going to be a marvellous day and involve lots of Diet Coke, let me tell you. Let's talk about the BBC. Lisa Nandy has been talking about the institution. She is the Culture Secretary. This is what she's been saying.
I think it's fair to say that this government and I were not satisfied with the initial response from the BBC, and we do need to see much swifter action taken in these sorts of instances, and action that results in this not happening again. I think we're all deeply concerned that there have been too many incidents of this kind.
deeply concerned that there have been too many incidents. Suzanne Franks is a former BBC broadcaster. She's a professor of journalism at City University. I have to declare an interest that I will soon be doing some teaching at City University in the next few weeks. In fact, taking one of the courses there, so just have to be absolutely clear about that. It is the gold standard of journalism training in this country. Suzanne, thank you for your joining us this evening. Tell us about your view on what Lisa Nandy has said.
I would have to agree with Lisa Nandy. It is absolutely incomprehensible what happened on Sunday night at the BAFTAs. I cannot understand how something which has a 2-hour delay, could still something like...
And they knew it had happened at the time. It wasn't as if they were caught unawares in some way. This was an incident at the time when this person said this horrendous racial slur. Neither Suzanne or I are going to use the word, of course, but it begins with N and we know what it is. And because of Tourette's. But the BBC has now apologised for it. Too little, too late, Suzanne?
I'm afraid it is. I mean, I still cannot understand, and nobody has properly explained exactly how this could have possibly happened. I mean, if it had been live on air, one could possibly have understood. But even then, to have allowed this to then go out on the iPlayer and to be up on the iPlayer for 15 hours before anything was done about it is beyond comprehension. I mean, where is all the editorial oversight?
And you and I both know, as former BBC broadcasters and former BBC employees ourselves, how much editorial oversight there is. How, if you want to get anything done in the BBC, you need a lot of different people, usually, to agree to it. I wonder also what you think about what Deborah Turness has said. She was the head of BBC News chief executive who resigned over the scandal in regard to Donald Trump on that doctored clip. She said it was a mistake in editing, which is a tiny bit of a euphemism there. She says most BBC journalists wouldn't vote reform. I don't think that'll come as a huge shock to many people. What do you think, Suzanne?
Yeah, I don't understand what point she's trying to make. I mean, I think probably most journalists per se in the UK wouldn't necessarily vote reform. So I don't quite understand what you know.
I think the point she appears to be making is that the organisation needed to be perhaps more reflective of the society, and we have about a quarter of people, poll after poll, saying that they would vote for Reform UK. So, I mean, it's not a matter of asking people who they would vote for, but I wonder if you agree with me that there is, most journalists, as we know, want to change things, are disruptive, are often left-wing, not necessarily the case at this station, but how could the BBC be more inclusive? I personally think the big issue is class in the media in general. It costs so much to train to be a journalist. It costs so much to do work experience and things like that. London is a place that a lot of people can't afford to live, for example. I think there should be a lot more to bring people of all classes in, and I think that you would bring much more of a variety of people, a real true diversity of people, if that was the case, Suzanne. I wonder what you think.
Oh yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right that we pay a lot of attention to having ethnic diversity, which is fine, but we don't pay enough attention to having geographical diversity and class. And certainly during my time at City, I worked very, very hard to try and get more funding for particularly for students from well outside London who don't have anywhere to live in London and who are, obviously going to face huge hurdles then to start a career as journalists. So I think that's absolutely true.
Suzanne, thank you. I look forward to working with you at City University. And that is Suzanne Franks, there, former BBC broadcaster and professor at City University. I'm going to be doing a bit of teaching there, which I'm really looking forward to. It's a new departure for me, it must be said. Tim is in Woking and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Tim, tell us about your view on assisted dying.
Yes, hi Peter. Thank you for taking my call.
Good to talk to you, Tim.
First-time caller. So
really? Okay. Well, you're very welcome to the programme.
So basically, in the early 90s, I looked after my mother for a number of years, who had multiple sclerosis.
It's a really dreadful disease. My best friend has multiple sclerosis.
Yeah, it's absolutely awful. But her condition got so bad that I couldn't assist her anymore, and she had to go into a care home in 1995.
Yeah.
And she passed away in 1998. Now, the reason why she had to go into a care home is because I was going out for like my afternoon break and coming home, and she was choking to death.
Goodness me.
I know it's a bit dark, right? And
well, it's your experience. It's what happened, Tim.
Yeah, the disease had attacked her throat. So me and my father had to make a decision to put her in a care home.
Yeah.
I was with my father last year, November, and we had a discussion about it. And I said, just imagine if I'd have gone out for that cycle ride for an extra half an hour.
Yeah.
And I've come home. It's a hard thing to say, right?
You take your time, Tim. You take your time, okay?
Would it have been better for her and all of us? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. But even with the assisted dying bill that's there, Tim, your mother wasn't given a terminal diagnosis, as much as I understand anyway. So it would only be for people who had that terminal diagnosis. And actually, there are a lot of people who live with life-limiting conditions like multiple sclerosis who wouldn't actually have been able to legally, you would not legally have been able to make that decision, and nor would your mother if she had the capacity to do that, Tim. So it's a very difficult thing, isn't it?
Very difficult, and I've had numerous conversations with my father about this, because I looked after her while my dad was at work. That's a decision that we made.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's a hard thing to think about, you know. If I'd have just gone out on that cycle ride for another half an hour.
Well, you didn't. You didn't.
She would have been dead.
Tim, we've got to go to the news, but I just want to say thank you for giving me a ring. And I want to say that I am sure both your father and your mother are very, very proud of you for all the work you did in supporting them both, especially your mother with multiple sclerosis. So try to remember the good times. What was her name, Tim?
June. And she was born in June.
She was born in June. I was born in June as well. Well, we'll remember June, and we thank you so much for your call, Tim, and for speaking to us so honestly. And a first-time caller, Tim, ring me again anytime. It'll be good to speak to you again, and thank you to everybody who does that and speaks so honestly on these programmes. It's a real privilege to do this job, and speaking to people like Tim and many others that I will between now and 10, I really count my lucky stars. More next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Peter Cardwell. I'm here till 10 o'clock, not just tonight, but all of next week and for the foreseeable future. It's very exciting. I'm going to be on the evening show from now on. That's the slot that I've got, so I'm really, really pleased with that. I'm going to be back on the weekends for a final time this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, 10 till half 12, Sunday, 10 till 1. So I hope you can join me for that. Lots to discuss tonight, though, in the next 58 minutes, because anti-Semitism is just a dreadful, dreadful thing in our society. And we know that there are so many stories around about a boy who was abused daily by anti-Semitic classmates, turning on Bunsen burners, making hissing noises to echo the horrors of the gas chambers. And also Gales, the bakery, especially one particular branch, but there are many that have been targeted because they're owned by a Jewish company and Jewish owners. Well, I've got my Gales bun. Matt, the assistant producer, very kindly got it for me earlier from our local Gales here at Talk Towers, and I will be eating it because with my cup of tea that he's about to make me, because I want to be in support of Jewish businesses and indeed Jewish people right across the UK and beyond. This ludicrous association that some campaigners have given them with the horrors of Gaza, which really is a whole other issue by itself, is just absurd. We'll talk about to someone who's actually organising one of the counter protests, which will happen very, very soon. We'll talk as well about the Royals, what's happening there, and loads of calls we will take between now and 10 o'clock on assisted dying, particularly. Lots of people want to get in on that because the government has dropped the bill. If you have a view on this, let me know. Other people want to talk about Gales, or talk about all sorts of issues about our NHS as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note, less than a minute, please. 0344 499 1000. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring, all on the main number, 0344 499 1000. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who has sent me lots of lovely messages. Can't read them all out because I'd just be here for a while and I don't think anybody wants that. But I'll just read one from Chris in Northumberland who says, I'm watching the show from the beginning on YouTube and I've just heard your 7 p.m. slot announcement. Just a quick note to say you're one of the best broadcasters around. More, please. Congratulations. Thank you, Chris. What a lovely thing. He sent that 14 minutes ago. And when he gets to this point in his YouTube viewing of the show, he will see it. So that's Chris in Northumberland. Thank you for that. And remember, you can watch the show on YouTube. You can watch on our website as well, talk.tv. You can watch old shows. You can see different bits of interviews. For example, I was talking to someone earlier about Mark Francois and Chagos Islands. The Chagos Islands, there's you can look up lots of individual interviews. You can see those. You can get them on your feed. You can subscribe. And of course, you can listen to the output on DAB Plus radio or with your smart speaker, or indeed online. You can watch as well on YouTube or your connected device, whether it's your phone, whether it's your iPad or your tablet, whatever you call it, or indeed your smart TV. And got a lovely message from someone who's just got a smart TV recently. 3/4 of homes have them, and if you have a smart TV, you can watch as well as listen. Right then, I want to talk about anti-Semitism. I want to talk about Gales as well, the bakery. Nicole Lampert is a journalist who's with me and a campaigner against anti-Semitism. We'll talk to her in just a second. But Eve Kay, who's a local resident who is talking about this big, big issue in Archway in North London. Eve, you're very good to join us this evening. Thank you. I know you've got a big morning tomorrow morning. Just tell me about why your protest tomorrow, what's been happening, educate our viewers on this dreadful, dreadful anti-Semitism against this bakery, which just happens to be owned by a Jewish family.
Yeah, well, a week ago, Gales opened in Archway, and I'm a local resident. I live 3 minutes away, and I was very pleased to see it open. And the night before it was due, it was attacked and daubed with red paint and graffiti, and it was very distressing. They wrote "Free Gaza" and "Boycott," and as a result of that, I've been going every day to support the workers. But then, within a week of that first attack and Gales cleaning up, the second attack happened. I think it was around midnight on Wednesday night. And this time it was an incredibly violent and frightening attack where every single window has been attacked with either a sledgehammer or a pickaxe or a big hammer of some kind. So these people attacking Gales, they're not content with just your normal peaceful protest or petition or leaflet or political campaign. They are using terrifying violence to make their point. And the idea that there are people wandering around in the middle of the night with sledgehammers, attacking people who they disagree with, as a resident, feels like an incredible violation of this community. No other business here has ever, in the 23 years that I've lived here, been attacked for its nationality or ethnicity.
Why are they attacking it? What reasons do they give?
Well, on the graffiti on Wednesday was reject corporate Zionism. So that was one thing, which I read as just basically kind of old-fashioned sort of Nazi kind of talking point about Jews owning business.
And just to be clear, for so many of our viewers and listeners, if you're against Zionism, Zionism is really straightforward. Zionism is, do you agree that Jewish people should have a homeland and should Israel exist? That's it. I am a Zionist. I'm very proud to say I'm a Zionist. I would go way beyond all that, but it's a really basic thing, isn't it, Eve? And this is clearly anti-Semitic.
Yeah, I think you've defined it correctly. And I think to talk about corporate Zionism is going into...
I'm not even really sure what that is.
Well, to me, I read that as the world kind of Jewish conspiracy to take over the banks and businesses and run the world into the ground, which is like an old-fashioned Nazi anti-Semitic trope from 70 years ago. So to see that in Archway, painted on a wall, is terrifying. And then the other thing that they daubed on the wall was shop local.
Yeah, we can see actually on the screen, if people are watching, people both listen on the radio and watch this programme, but harms locally owned businesses, bad reputation for workers' rights, and owned by Bain Capital. I mean, is there anything within that? Do you have any sympathy with that, or is that just a smokescreen for the reality here?
I think it's a smokescreen because the truth is that Gales replaced a subway, which, let's not forget, is a chain. So it replaced a subway and an independent newsagent. So the idea that, I mean, we have in Archway a Co-op, we have an Aldi, we have a Sainsbury's, we have an M&S.
Which apparently these people have no issue with. So isn't it strange that the Jewish one is the one they have the issue with? I wonder if I can bring in Nicole Lambert. I'll come back to you in a second, Eve. But Nicole Lambert is a journalist who joins me reasonably frequently on programmes on a campaigner against anti-Semitism. This is just so straightforward, what's happening here. It's so blatantly obvious, Nicole, isn't it?
Hi, Peter, and having me on, and congratulations with your evening slot.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've seen this actually happen to quite a few Jewish-owned businesses around the world. Quite a few of them have been closed down, one in Australia, one in America. And the ironic thing is, although Gales was started by a Jewish-Israeli woman, it's now owned by American venture capitalists. So doesn't really have any Israeli links, apart from the fact that as venture capitalists, they have funds in Israel, in Israeli bonds and that kind of thing, as do almost every company have some sort of link to Israel, because unless you want to divest from everything, you'll have no Google, you'll have no Apple.
You'll have no smartphone. You'll have no smartphone. There's Israeli technology in every single smartphone. There's 1 in 7 drugs in the NHS is a generic drug that saves the NHS something like £2.9 billion a year. And if you don't want to take those generic drugs, if you want to die and not take those generic drugs, well, I would say to those people, go ahead, by all means. I don't want anybody to die, but it's just so ludicrous to hold people responsible for the actions of Benjamin Netanyahu. That's like me saying, well, Eve, you're someone in the UK. You're obviously responsible for every single word that comes out of Keir Starmer's mouth. I mean, it's just absolute nonsense. Eve, what have you done about this? What's happening tomorrow morning?
A breakfast at Gales, which is starting tomorrow at 8:30, and I'm encouraging everybody in the area and other friends from Our Fight, a solidarity movement to protect British Jews by ordinary people here. So I invited Our Fight and friends, neighbours, everybody that I know on Facebook to come along and support Gales, buy a coffee, eat cake, have pastry. Because
that very much sounds like my kind of protest. I'll be brutally frank with you, Eve. And what I've done, I can't make it tomorrow morning, unfortunately, but what I've done is I've bought, well, more accurately, Matt, our assistant producer, has very kindly got me a Gales hot cross bun. So in the break, I'm not going to do it now because there'll be some horrible munching noises, but in the break, I'm going to eat this hot cross bun in solidarity with you and your protest, Eve, and I have this lovely cup of tea that Matt has made me as well. I wish you very, very well in your protest. We're going to talk to Nicole about something else now in a second, but Eve, I'm going to let you go and just say great work, good for putting your head above the parapet. Have you had a backlash personally just before you go, Eve?
Not yet, I'm pleased to say.
Good. Well, long may that continue, and long may your campaigning and your bravery continue. Thank you for that. That's Eve Kay, who's a resident in North London, and they will be having that protest tomorrow morning at 8:30 if you happen to be in the area. Nicole is still with me, and I wonder, Nicole, if you could just talk us through this dreadful story. I know it's in the Daily Mail about a boy who was targeted because he's Jewish. Horrible anti-Semitism from his classmates.
So yesterday I joined several dozen Jews and allies in the House of Commons, and the plan was to meet with their local MPs, their constituency MPs. So I actually joined a couple of NHS workers who live in Wes Streeting's constituency, and I sat with them while they cried with him. And that will be in the Jewish Chronicle tomorrow, that report. But and it was very emotional. And then in the evening there was a chance for some of them to speak, and parents of school children, including this schoolboy, and students. And the stories that came out were just genuinely so shocking. And I've been covering anti-Semitism now for some years, and in particular since October 7. And it's just really heartbreaking. There are these students who have menstrual blood being daubed on their doors, these poor children being followed home and having hissing noises, being called all sorts of things.
The hissing, of course, an echo of the gas chambers. I mean, this is beyond just horrible children. This is, I mean, kids, especially between about the ages of 12 and 16, can be pretty horrible. They often bully one another at all ages, but that particular age is pretty bad. But this is a step beyond that.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there was also a woman who had been beaten up in the street because her husband is visibly Jewish. But one of the stories that all of that action is bad, but the other side of that was the inaction of the people that should know better. Yeah. So when the boy complained, he was told that he needs to be more resilient. So the one time
he was told to be more. How can you be more resilient? What, say I'll just get on with this? And I mean, even Terry's been in touch on text, and he says the criminals attacking Gales will not be prosecuted even if they're identified. I mean, if schools are basically saying at this level, well, these bullies, they're just that's just what happens. You need to be more resilient. And then we extrapolate that into the story we were talking about a second ago of people who are graffitiing and intimidating people and intimidating workers. One leads to the other.
Yeah, and for example, the students that were talking, they were basically told, you know, they asked for help, please keep me safe. And the university kind of said, we can't keep you safe, but you can do your lessons online. And these are kids that are spending...
For goodness sake. Why do they just not stand up to these bullies? What is the point of an institution, whether it's a school or a university? What is the point of them? Surely they've got to have some moral backbone and say this is completely wrong.
Well, just to go back to the initial story that I told you about, this meeting with these NHS workers in Wes Streeting, you know, he's the health minister, and he basically said, I'm ashamed, as he should be. The government should be ashamed, and the previous government too, because this has been allowed to fester. And I think, you know, we certainly saw an explosion after October 7, and I think that many of us hoped that would have died down.
Yes.
Now that there has been a ceasefire. But if anything, there's been a ramping up. Obviously, we saw the murders in Manchester, we saw the murders in Australia, and it's almost like they have become more extreme. And what happened at Gales is an example of that. There is the war is over. No one cares about what's going on in Sudan or Iran. They're obsessed with this one thing. And and we see it in the Greens in particular. It's become it's a cause célèbre. It's a bonding thing, and they don't want to let.
Nicole, I just want to steer you away from that just for tonight, just because there is a by-election going on, and we can't talk about that just at the moment. So I'll just be very careful about that. The by-election obviously going on in Gorton and Denton. But listen, Nicole, I think so many of your points stand, as they always do. When it comes to Gales, what's your favourite bun at Gales?
Well, you see, I am gluten-free, so there's only one or two things I can have, so I'm kind of stuck with those. But,
what are the gluten-free things at Gales?
The gluten-free cake is nice, and the hot chocolate is very good.
Lovely. Well, we're going to take a break now. I am not going to have too many munching sounds on the air, because they're not very nice when you're listening to the radio in particular, but I'm going to have this hot cross bun that looks and smells absolutely delicious, and Matt has very kindly made me a cup of tea in my talk mug, and I'm going to go and do that. But I am definitely I'm sadly not there tomorrow morning, but I am in solidarity with those who will be at Gales in Archway. And for the meantime, Nicole Lambert, the journalist and campaigner against anti-Semitism, thank you and cheers with my tea. And thank you to Eve, who we spoke to a little bit earlier on, Eve Kay, the local resident. I'm off for my hot cross bun. I will see you in a couple of minutes.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Nat in Tel Aviv, who says, I'm not sure whether I'm jealous of the hot cross bun more or that beautiful mug. I'm about halfway through the hot cross bun. We've two more breaks before the end of the programme, and believe me, the hot cross bun is going to be demolished. We've got about half of it left, but it is absolutely delicious. It's from Gales, which obviously we don't want any undue prominence, but it is editorially justified to talk about Gales, the bakery where I would highly recommend you go for your delicious treats, because there are some horrible anti-Semites that are trying to close down the branch that is in Archway in North London, where a counter-protest is taking place tomorrow morning. Right then, let's talk about the Royals, and Grant Harold, who is former Royal Butler, is with me now. Grant, you're very welcome to the programme. Good evening.
Good evening, thank you for having me
on. There's quite a lot going on, really, with Harry and Meghan, of course, who are on this, or have been on this tour of Jordan, but apparently they were snubbed by King Abdullah and his eldest son. Tell us your thoughts about this.
Well, it's interesting because obviously the reports say that the king is obviously, he knows the king, our king quite well.
Yes.
His son knows the Prince of Wales. I mean, I wouldn't have said, and this is just from my experience when I was there, I wouldn't have said they were all best friends by any means. They're obviously royal families that know each other and they've got an association with each other. The fact that they're saying that they've been snubbed, I don't know if that's an official line that's been said or if it's what's been assumed, because I don't think, and it's just my feeling, I don't think that it would be deliberately done. I'm imagining that the king himself may have other
presumably it's a point of protocol as well, because we have Harry and Meghan who are apparently not royals anymore, yet they do seem to be acting in a pretty royal fashion. What do you think, Grant?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I've been saying. It's almost like a royal tour, but it's not a royal tour because they're not technically, they're not working royals. So they're doing this unofficial royal tour. I am assuming, I'm guessing that, from what I understand, Harry has been having a conversation with his father. So I'm assuming that he has obviously told his father about this visit. So I don't think it'll be a surprise to the king or to his brother. I'm sure that there has been dialogue about it. Whether it's been encouraged or supported, that's a completely different matter. But they have obviously decided to take this duty. And I understand that the ambassador to the country also actually welcomed them and was pleased that they were there, you know, and there was an official, if you like, an official invitation. They weren't invited to go out there.
Should they be doing these kind of visits?
It's a really tricky one because, yes, I mean, there's no reason for them not to. Anyone can be invited to, another country. You know, you get celebrities doing it all the time. As long as that's what they're going, as long as they're going under, can I say, under that umbrella of a celebrity, that's fine. If they're going under the umbrella as British working royals, that's not technically right because they're no longer working royals to the British royal family, you know, so they're doing it under their own steam. So they're doing it just, you know, without any kind of endorsement from the royal family, because otherwise it would be an invitation via the British government.
Well, indeed. Tell us what you think about Princess Eugenie as well. Apparently an insider says she's happy and at ease. It cannot be easy for her, who's done nothing wrong, as far as we know, to be caught up in all of this scandal in regard to her father and indeed mother.
I feel really sorry for it. There's a video at the moment circulating on social media. I saw it a little while ago, and she's walking, obviously, in a street in London, and somebody goes up and starts kind of quizzing her, and you can see she's really uncomfortable.
That's not very fair. That's not a very fair thing.
I felt sorry for her because, you know, basically Eugenie, who actually did actually know weirdly, I didn't know their father that well, but I got to know them, and they're two very polite, really nice girls, and I feel for them because I think they would have been, I don't think they've been aware of any of this. I have no doubt they weren't aware of any of this, and they're caught up in this, and the embarrassment for them must be awful. I mean, God knows what's going through their minds. And at the end of the day, it's still their parents, and you know, whether parents or their kids, whatever, do things wrong, it's still your parents, it's still your children. So it's a very tricky one. So I do feel for them.
Thank you, Grant. That's Grant Harold there, the royal butler. Really appreciate him joining us this evening. Leslie says, what a pity the US doesn't have the same border controls Stormer has afforded Gibraltar. What a traitor he is. We were talking about that a little bit earlier on. And one person says, strange how these Palestinian activists target Gales, yet don't target Marks and Spencer's, even though Marks and Spencer was originally started by a Polish Jew called Michael Marks. Grace has some thoughts on this. She's given me a ring from West London. Grace, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, I am very concerned about the people who are suffering in Gaza, as well as people who are suffering in other parts of our world. And what I don't understand, what I don't understand is why you would, or not you, why one would specifically target Gales, which doesn't seem to have particular links to the suffering, rather than using that collective energy and the fact that they're able to organise together. When I've tried organising things, I've not succeeded because I've got no friends, but if you can organise something, why not work together to address the suffering caused by corporations that are linked to modern slavery and other exploitation that's causing real suffering in our world really directly?
Grace, I wish I had a convincing answer on this, a straightforward answer to you. Unfortunately, the answer is these people don't care about people in Sudan. They don't care about what's happening in Iran. They don't care about human rights. They don't care about women's rights. They say they do, but they don't. Your level of concern for the children of Gaza, my level of concern for innocent people, men, women and children in Gaza, the same as you, they do not have that. What they do is they hate Israel and they hate Jews, and they mask that behind what they do. And it's really, really bad, and it's continuing, and it's allowed to fester as well. There's so many things. I wish, you know, I don't mind angry people. If people are angry, there's a lot to be angry about in this world. This is not Gail's Bakery selling flipping hot cross buns, half of which I have in my hand, is not exactly the world's biggest deal. It's a derangement.
Yeah, I mean, we have a cross and a hot cross bun because one Jewish man died on a cross for our sin, and it's like now we've got this quasi-religious thing where they think that they actually need to conclude that all Jewish people are guilty of sin just by virtue of being Jewish by nationality. It's a kind of reverse religion, quasi, it's dangerous because it's leading to so much hatred, and it's not helping the people of Gaza. It's not helping other people in our world who are suffering because of exploitation by Western institutions that are causing suffering. And it's really frustrating because they could be doing something useful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Grace, I know it was a bit of a throwaway line, but I'm a bit concerned when you said you don't have friends. Is that true?
Oh yes, sorry, I didn't mean. I wasn't trying to bring up.
No, I know. You're never someone. I've spoken to you on a number of occasions. As people know, you're not someone who says "woe is me" or ever is in any way self-pitying. But you're not serious with that, are you? Yeah, I'm thinking about a time years ago when I spent a lot of time trying to fundraise to raise money for people in our world who are in severe poverty, and I found it quite difficult to get events and things going because it was quite hard to network, and I don't really have close friends. I've got some really great acquaintances and some people I know through church, but I don't have close friends in the way that normal people do, partly because of my Asperger's. I was bullied in primary school, and I realised I'm so irritating. I shouldn't try to make close friends with people because I don't want to irritate people by being close friends with them. I don't find you irritating.
I could just irritate people on air instead.
No, I don't think you irritate people on air. I think you speak a lot of common sense. I don't agree with you and everything. Well, that doesn't matter. But Grace, listen, you're a very valued caller, and I know you've called me at the weekend. I hope you now continue to call me in the evenings because that's my new slot. But I really appreciate your call, Grace, and wish you well. That is Grace in West London. Peter is in Ashford and wants to talk about assisted dying. This is a big debate because now the legislation has been dropped. The Labour government doesn't think it will go through. Peter, what's your perspective on this?
I think it's always a very difficult thing with assisted dying because there are people who say, oh yes, but it'll just quickly go down the slippery slope and we'll just kill everybody we don't like.
But we've seen that, Peter. We've seen it going down a slippery slope in, for example, Canada.
Yeah, well, it can happen, yes.
Yep.
My particular perspective, though, as part of the debate you were going on about, was hospice care and that kind of thing. My mother spent her last 2 weeks in a hospice 30-odd years ago. Her treatment at the hands of the NHS was fairly indifferent, and the hospice movement is just stunning in the way that it looks after people. Certainly that's my experience. But there are many people, it's come up before, the idea that because it is so useful, it should be, as they call it, properly funded, suggesting it through taxation. But I wouldn't trust the civil service to run a bath, to be honest. And I think the trouble is that if the hospice movement got into the hands of the government, they would put so much bureaucracy on it, it would be as big a nightmare as the NHS.
The hospice movement is an incredible thing, isn't it? I mean, the fact that they are funded often by donations, by bequests, by people leaving things in their will, by other charities as well. It is just an incredible thing that this country does, and we don't know, unless you've been through it, unless you've been through the system as you have, Peter, very sadly, a lot of people don't know a huge amount about it, do they?
No. In fact, about 40 years ago, I did some mini-cabbing in London, and one of our jobs was occasionally to take people from staff from St Christopher's Hospice. And on one occasion, my passenger was Dame Cicely Saunders, who effectively founded the whole hospice movement.
Yes.
She was a nurse, saw what was happening and thought, well, it's got to be better than this. And she started it up. And she was the most natural, calm, ordinary person, but she had a vision. And the hospice movement is the result of it. So it's really my aspect. I mean, the assisted dying is a can of worms you don't want to open, but we might have to. But no, I just wanted to comment really on the hospice movement, how it should be pretty much kept as it is.
You mentioned your mother there, Peter. I know it was a long time ago that she died, but I don't want to just talk about her in death. Can you talk about your mother in life and what she was like?
Oh, very calm, very ordinary, very caring. And she was one of the old school, born in 1920, so went through all of that. Her childhood was not the happiest. Lower middle class, I suppose it might have been defined at the time.
Was she a good mum, Peter?
Sorry?
Was she a good mum?
She was a very good mum, yeah.
Well, you looked after her well, even until her dying day, and I want to thank you for that, Peter, and thank you for your call this evening as well, and sharing your story with us. That's Peter in Ashford there. Nicola's in Maidstone and has some thoughts on assisted dying. Nicola, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, hi there, yes. I was just listening to you earlier speaking with regards to assisted dying. Now, I have some history of working for a hospice, and there is a very big difference between assisted dying and withdrawal of treatment.
Yes.
So
Can you just tell us what that difference is, Nicola?
Yes, so that difference is my mother had multiple sclerosis, and she got to the age of 80 and she said, Helen, I've had enough. I don't want to live anymore. So the doctors and we all had a meeting, and they basically said, if you don't want to have any more treatment, so any more drugs, shall we say, any more fluids, any more food, that is very, very different to having assisted dying, where you actually give them something to assist them to die.
Yes.
And everybody seems to be getting this all very confused on the television. You know, we can all, people with motor neuron disease, for example, when I worked in the hospice, they have to have a mask to give them oxygen to keep them alive. People, they do what they call demasking. They take away the mask, and the mask, which is keeping them alive, will not keep them alive anymore.
My point, I suppose, is who makes that decision and when? Because if your mother was in a situation where she was...
My mother made that decision.
So she was... Yeah, but that's the point. First of all,
but we had power of attorney. We also had power of attorney for my father.
Okay.
For health and wealth, but obviously health was more important.
So in theory, you could have made that decision for your mother. You could have withdrawn treatment from her. Okay.
Which is what she had told us previously. So, you know, when you start to get older, we all seem to have those conversations.
Yes.
Having worked in a hospice, I worked with nurses, doctors, and they all said one of the worst diseases to have is a motor neuron disease. So most people that would be diagnosed with that would say, God, I don't want to get to the end of it because it is pretty horrendous. It's pretty awful, which is when they do the demasking. So most people would have what they call a living will, and they would say, do you know what, if I get to the point when I'm going to be really awful, please, I've handed over my decision to my loved one, my partner, my mother, my husband, to say I do not wish to live anymore.
But if you're in a situation, Nicola, where you have the demasking, for example, is something presumably sorry, this is a really tricky thing to talk about, and I want to make sure I'm not offending people by doing so. I want to be precise in what I'm saying. If you demask, you're probably going to die quite quickly.
Oh yes,
But what if you're in a situation, for example, where you have cancer? You say, I'm not going to have any more treatment. I'm going to refuse all treatment. But actually, you could live and indeed die in an agonising way, and it could take a very, very long time. You know, months perhaps. And you have a situation where someone says, I've decided I don't want any more treatment. and I've decided I don't want to go through the process of dying over a long period of time, therefore I want to assist my own death, or someone, you know, a relative could make that decision, hypothetically, if there was a terminal illness, if there was a terminal diagnosis of less than 6 months to live. Now that's been taken away, that won't happen any longer because of what the government has decided. Do you think that's right?
Yeah. Right. So, having worked in a hospice, I think what we need to do is hand over to the reins of the consultants and the doctors that are working with these people that have the utmost experience in dealing with. They know the nurses.
But they often get it wrong. They often get it wrong, Nicola, even with that experience.
Yes, they might get it wrong. Yes, I do agree with you, 100%, Peter. They do sometimes get it wrong, that they might say, oh, well, the prognosis for you is going to be less than 6 months. And a lot of it is to do with funding.
Yeah.
A lot of it is.
But look at Esther Rantzen, for example. You know, the biggest campaigner, the most well-known campaigner in assisted dying. 3.5 years ago, she was given 6 months to live. Here she is.
You're talking about Esther Rantzen?
Yes.
Yes, and I totally agree with her with what she's saying. And the dreadful thing. But
the point with Esther Rantzen is she said she wanted to have an assisted death 3.5 years ago. Yet here she is 3.5 years on, and she's well enough to do interviews. Now I want her to live.
But the only difference there, Peter, is the only way you can get assisted dying is being well enough to get on a flight to go to Dignitas.
Yeah. Okay.
If we had it in this country, you could have it as a living thing. So, okay, I'm okay. This is what I would like to have. This is what I would like to have. I would like to die peacefully without any issues, but you can't do that in this country. So people are going before their time, shall we say, having to go over to somewhere like Dignitas where they're allowed to go.
Although, as we know, Nicola, there's a very small number of people who actually do that and have the ability and the expense of doing that as well. And if you help them, of course, you can be criminally liable for that. Nicola, very, very interesting to hear from you, from Maidstone, on your personal experience of this, both in your family and also in your work at the hospice there. Really interesting. After the break, more calls, messages and voice notes right up to 10 o'clock. We'll have a chat with Petri Hoskin as well about what's coming up on her show. But no, actually we won't, because Petri Hoskin isn't here this evening. It's Andre Walker. We'll have a chat with him about what's coming up between 10 and 1 on his show. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you to everybody who sent me a voice note, quite a few on Gibraltar and assisted dying too. Let's have a bit of a voice note-a-thon. You can send these in, of course, 0344 499 1000. Bridget in France first.
good evening, Peter. Many congratulations on your new evening show. Absolutely no confidence, Peter, in what this terrible government are saying regarding Gibraltar. They're just bent on giving away British sovereign land. I've been reading articles on this for a while, and I'm not surprised it's come to this. So it started with Chagos, now it's Gibraltar, and it wouldn't surprise me, Peter, if the next one they want to give away are the Falklands. But that's the Labour government for you.
Bridget, excellent thoughts there. I agree with basically all you've said there. Ray has been in touch on Gibraltar as well from Taunton.
Just to tell you, I'm a regular visitor to Gibraltar, and I know some people who are well connected. And originally it was going to be that the Spanish border guards would be upstairs in the airport and the Gibraltarian border would be downstairs. And anybody going to Spain would go upstairs in the airport and would then go straight over to Spain. And the British visitors visiting Gibraltar would not go in a Schengen area and would go straight into Gibraltar. This obviously isn't good enough for the Spanish, who've been trying to take the airport over for the last 30 years. And the reason that they wanted the airport, I think, originally was to be able to access it for Spanish aircraft.
Ray, very interesting to talk to you and to hear from what you're saying there. So I really appreciate that. Really interesting. Final one on Gibraltar from Brian, who is in Spain.
Hello there, this is Brian. Unfortunately, I live in Spain, but I'd just like to make a comment that I go back at least 40 years. All this about Gibraltar and the passport, we tried to go into Gibraltar, we had to show our passport. I don't understand what's changed.
Well, thank you for that, and there'll be more detail on that, of course, as the bill is published and how much comes out on that. Just before we do the final voice note, for the meantime anyway, I just want to read out what Stacey has written when she sent in a WhatsApp message to say, I've witnessed two very close people to me die in horrendous pain and not at all dignified. We don't let pets suffer. Why do we let people suffer? Ali says, if I'm ever diagnosed with a terminal illness, I and I alone should have the right to choose when I go, not forced to suffer from treatment or illness. Ali, that's a fair point, and I agree with that. But what if you're not in a position to make a decision by yourself? Who should others be allowed to make that decision? Because that's another big issue. Adrian has some thoughts on this. He sent me a voice note from the Isle of Wight.
Keir Starmer promised that Esther Rantzen would get the bill. Luckily, use that in quotes, the bill was selected as a private member's bill from hundreds which were submitted, and it's been going through and going through and going through, watered down and watered down and watered down. And the example of Canada and Oregon should be a lesson. So this message, this news is just totally brilliant, quite frankly.
Thank you, Adrian, welcoming that dropping of the bill by the government. I want to speak to about anti-Semitism in just a second. Anthony in Leeds is holding, and I will come to you in a second, Anthony, I promise. Joan in Sunderland has some thoughts on assisted dying first. Joan, what would you like to say? You're very welcome to the programme.
Well, to be quite honest, Peter, I am undecided. I have a rare cancer. I was diagnosed 10 years ago. The road hasn't been easy, but I saw my consultant just before Christmas to thank him for an extra 10 years.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that, Joan. What's the prognosis at the moment? What did he say about how things are at the moment, if you don't mind telling us?
They'll see me if I have any problems. I'm sort of in remission.
Good.
So I've had 10 years of extra life. As I say, the road hasn't been easy. Sometimes you're 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. But as he said, another Christmas, Joan. The thing that I would like to see changed, and this is the most difficult thing you can do, I was going to the doctors at least, when you could go to the doctor, at least 2 and 3 times a week, telling them there was something wrong. And I was in tears when I was constantly told, could it be anxiety or depression?
Goodness me, yeah.
It was only when I insisted on a second opinion, because sometimes you have to be pushy.
Yes, you do.
That this was diagnosed. Now, the problem is, once you get into the system, the care is
brilliant.
But it's getting into that system and it's convincing them that something's wrong.
Yeah, it's getting into the system.
Yeah.
And that is the thing. I mean, people wait so long, it's too late.
I know what you mean.
Advanced.
And there's so many people who really aren't hypochondriacs, who really do know that something's wrong, they know their body, and they need to be seen sooner. Joan, thank you for your call, and I wish you well. I wish you another 10 years of very, very happy life, if not more. Anthony is in Leeds and has some thoughts on anti-Semitism. Anthony, sorry to keep you on hold for so long. I do apologise there. What are your thoughts on this?
All right, Peter. It just seems wrong picking up with the Jewish people in this country. It didn't happen before years ago, back in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
I mean, I think a lot of it is to do with the war in the Middle East and the 7th of October and so many pro-Palestinian voices being louder and bolder.
Yeah, we haven't seen to learn nothing from the Second World War, have we, really? Have we?
Yeah. It's a good point, Anthony.
Outside the Jewish shops, reminds me of Germany in the 30s, and these middle-class university idiots, the same old faces that interfered in Rhodesia, the same old ones, them the ones who stopped Benny Hill on television, and Bernard Manning.
Okay. Well, Anthony, listen, thank you for your thoughts this evening. Sorry, go ahead. Don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I tell you what to do with these people, picking on Jewish people. Why don't they put them in prison for 100 years?
Well, certainly we know that the law enforcement should be a lot stronger than it is, and certainly people who are causing criminal damage to Gail's Bakery should be certainly dealt with in the police. There should be a greater police presence. Anthony, thank you for your thoughts this evening. I appreciate that. That's Anthony in Leeds. We're going to talk more about assisted dying because a lot of people want to talk about that. Carol in Cornwall is our next caller. We'll speak to her in just a few minutes after the break here on Talk.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you so much to everybody who's been in touch about the news that I'm going to be doing the evening slot 5 nights a week. I really appreciate it. Don't worry about Kevin. Kevin's going to be doing drive time, so he'll be here between 4 and 7. I'll be here between 7 and 10, 5 nights a week. So really appreciate that. I'm not going to read out every message that everybody's sent because that would not be fair. But Amanda says, are they on catch up? I can't catch all your weekday shows. Yes, they are. You can go on YouTube or you can go to talkTV. Amanda, you can watch them as well if you've got a smart TV, as 3/4 of homes do. And another person says, surely now you can get your pick with your colleagues on the ads. That'll be the day. Amanda says the BBC are in decline, their viewing figures are plummeting, and their broadcasts are in chaos. Lovely message from Lee in Wolves as well. Kaz says, give my love to Jack and well done, thank you. And Leslie, lovely message from her as well, and Dave in Litchfield too. So I appreciate everybody who's got in touch. As I say, I'm just not going to read them all out because we have callers waiting and lots of people who want to talk about a very serious issue of assisted dying and other issues too. We'll also talk to Ash about what's coming up on his and Andre's programme between 10 and 1. We'll do that in the next few minutes, but I want to speak to Carol first, who is in Cornwall, who's been waiting on the line. Carol, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say this evening?
Well, Peter, as you know, I have an interest in this, in assisted dying because of what happened to my husband.
You've spoken to us very movingly about it before, Carol.
Yes.
So tell us your perspective now this legislation won't go forward.
Well, I think I'm probably pleased that it's not going to go forward, that it's stuck in the House of Lords, because from what I can gather, it's a bit of a dog's dinner.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so it's not really suitable. But what I know about the Channel Islands bill and what's going to be enacted sounds to me about as perfect as you can get.
So what's happening? So we know the Isle of Man and I think Jersey as well is going forward with this. So how is it different there as you understand it, Carol?
Well, as I understand it, that for a start, the 6 months is going to be elongated to 12 months for people suffering from neurological diseases, like my husband did. And so that, you see, in some ways, it can enable people to live longer if you have the knowledge in the back of your mind that when things get so very, very bad, you are going to be able to be put to sleep and leave your misery behind. That can enable you to bear more.
Yes.
Because you have that safety net.
Yes.
There. It's a safety net.
Yes.
And the guy you had on earlier, I'm afraid I've forgotten his name, talking about palliative care. Well, palliative care is all well and good, but it doesn't deal with the mental anguish
of course
that these patients go through. And once you've looked into the eyes of the despair that you can actually see in someone's eyes, palliative care is not going to deal with that.
Yeah, and that's a really, really good point, Carol. We're just going to leave it there for the meantime because I want to bring in Sue in the New Forest for a final word on this. But thank you, Carol. Sue in the New Forest, you have the final call of the evening before we speak to Ash Gould. What would you like to say, Sue?
Well, although I appreciate Esther Ranson's position, which is very sad, but she has, obviously the finances. She's already said that she signed up to Dignitas.
Yes.
But what she wants is her family around her when the time comes, which, from what I understand, is not possible. What she wants is to be in her home with her family and close ones around her.
Yes, and that won't be possible because this legislation isn't going to happen.
Exactly is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But also what I wanted to add to that was that when my mum was dying in her care home, they rang me to say, I think the time is nigh. So gave me time to sort of gather around as many family as I could.
Yes.
In the care home. The GP was there and the emergency services. because she was connected up to
And did that give her a dignified end to her life?
Well, she was. You never know. We were all talking to her and telling her we loved her and touching her, but you never know.
Yeah.
If they can feel that, hear that, or
well, it certainly sounds as if you did all you could, Sue, to make sure that was something that was as dignified as it could be. But as you say, it's very, very hard to know exactly what the right thing is to do. Sue in the New Forest, thank you very much for joining me. Ash Gould is with me now. Hello, sir.
Hi, how you doing, man?
I'm very well. Sort of very warm, isn't it?
Has it been a good show, yeah?
It's
this is your first new show of the new...
Well, the officially Monday, but I've been filling in this week, Monday to Thursday. So I'm off tomorrow, then I do Saturday and Sunday, mid-morning shows, and then starting on Monday at 7 o'clock.
Will you still do the weekends as well?
No, I won't be doing
too
the
much,
weekends.
isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I needed some time off, I think.
Yeah, you do, man. You're the hardest working man here.
Well, I mean, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants like your good self, Ash. What's coming up in your programme?
Well, I've lost a bit of weight. We've got Dave Bull. You remember Dr. Dave Bull?
I do.
Chairman of Reform UK, because obviously the polls are closing in a few minutes, isn't it?
So in the Gorton and Denton by-election,
yeah,
there's about 2 minutes left.
2 minutes to go. And Pete Barnes, political strategist, is going to come in and analyse the data. You know, he's like that, what is it, Jon Snow? You know, but do you remember the swingometer?
The swingometer. Peter Snow. It was Peter Snow with the swingometer. And then it was, I think it's Jeremy Vine now. Jon Snow's in the Channel 4.
Jeremy Vine.
Yeah, but Peter Snow and Jon Snow, I think, are like cousins or something, but yeah.
They are, aren't they? They are. Yeah. And then there's his kid, isn't
there? Like these families that, you know, have a stranglehold on
nothing to do with nepotism, is it? That his son gets all that great gig.
Well, it might say the same thing about Johnny Gould.
Yeah, he only got it down to me. Jeremy Corbyn, we're going to be talking about him, and he beat Zara Sultan to become the leader of your party. Is it called Your Party? Have they decided?
It's not called Your Party, yes.
Silly name, because if you go, what's your party? You know what I mean? It's just confusing. It shouldn't be allowed. Labour moving thousands of asylum seekers from hotels to private homes, and they think that's what we wanted. We wanted them we just don't want them. You know, there's a lot of problems happening, isn't there, Pete? Yeah. Statistically. And they go, oh, yeah, but British people do it, but statistically, you know, they're just trying to fudge it all. We know what's going on, and now they could be living in a house near you. Some of them are going to get actual whole house.
Yeah, that's right.
Certain conditions, and they'll be told